Hey, what's up guys, it's your boy KCM What Ifs. Today we are gonna be reading the Sharingan Devil, or what if Naruto had the Sharingan and was a captain of the ANBU. So sit back, relax and enjoy. Standing on top of the giant Yuzu wall were nearly 200 soldiers. Dressed in black full-sleeved shirts and pants of the same color, each of them had the swastika symbol tied on their arms. Swords resting firmly on their backs and their faces covered by death masks. They were the SS Guard. Unknown to most of the people of the world, they were named after two of the Kaiser's deceased friends whose names started with the same initial letter. Among the entire Reich forces, they were the best. Being personally trained by the likes of Sasuke Uchiha and Kakashi Hatake, they had successfully secured many crucial victories for their empire regardless of the cost. Right now, staring at the monster howling across the battlefield made none of them flinch or back away, even when it was the largest and most dangerous thing they had ever seen. Apart from their courage, such steadiness came with the fact that their newest army commander stood in front of them. Dressed in the same uniform as his soldiers, with only his face not covered by the death mask, Sabaka no Gaara observed the terrifying monster with a cold, icy gaze. No sign of fear or tension visible in those pale blue-green eyes of the former Suna Jinchuriki. While their previous army commander would have ordered them to valiantly charge such a monstrous enemy, Gaara had taken a few seconds to ascertain the situation and then spoke in clear words. Men, your mission is to adopt a defensive formation and encircle this monster from all sides. Don't let it advance to the wall, no matter the cost, commanded Gaara. Understood, Commander. But what about the masked man? Asked the SS captain. Squads 4, 5, 6 will engage him if he makes a move to step in the battle. Until then, he is to be left alone. He certainly is someone beyond our powers, said Gaara frankly, but said another squad leader. However, he was silenced when Gaara gave him a blank stare. Our only priority is stopping this monster from attacking this wall. Neither do we have the resources or time to go after the masked man controlling it. If we fall, the rest of the soldiers are needed to stop the monster. That is why I will personally lead all of you in battle, said Gaara seriously. Commander, said many of them in surprise. At that moment, Kakashi stepped beside them along with another person. Gaara blinked in surprise when he saw something he had never seen before in his entire life. Tsunade Senju, dressed in battle armor, arrived beside him. The Senju clan's mark shined proudly on her armor along with the Reich uniform she wore beneath it. The SS soldiers were in awe of seeing a member of the legendary Sannin stepping forward like this. I agree with Gaara's strategy and shall support him in this battle, said Tsunade seriously. Then I thank you for the assistance, Tsunade-sama, replied Gaara respectfully, as she cocked a surprised eyebrow at him. What? No women can participate in battle? Or you're too important as a medical ninja to risk your life in battle? Asked Tsunade bemusedly. The redhead merely shook his head. That might be the perspective of Sasuke, not mine. You are a Kage-level ninja, and have been through 2 great ninja wars. You're one of the strongest warriors in the Reich, and it would be foolish of me to believe that I alone can stand up to this monster alone with my men. That is what I truly believe, replied Gaara honestly, no sign of deception or flattery visible in his eyes. Tsunade could only stare at this boy. She didn't know where Sasuke was, but right now she had spotted a similarity in these boys along with her own ancestors. Sasuke was like Hashirama when it came to army battles, a straight-up warrior who always led the charge and tried to overwhelm the enemy with sheer force and courage. Gaara was like Tobirama, a sound and rational commander. Never one to be swayed by emotions, he always took the correct decisions no matter how hard they may seem to others. He even accepted the shame of becoming the only commander in the Reich to ever surrender to the resistance, yet he did it regardless of his pride because it was necessary to save thousands of soldiers from being needlessly slaughtered during the Battle of Sarutobi Fortress. Even now, Gaara's rationality and self-control was the reason why their army was not in panic and utter chaos. And unlike several soldiers in their army who joined their Reich after their respective villages and nations were defeated, Sasuke and Gaara had willingly joined the Kaiser and served him faithfully throughout the years. Supreme Commander Kakashi, I request you to fortify our defenses and prepare our forces for battle. Just in case. Suggested Gaara. It shall be done, Commander. Though I hope it doesn't come to that. Said Kakashi seriously, receiving nods from everyone. So do we, Kakashi. Replied Tsunade confidently. Gaara stepped towards the edge of the wall, his eyes connected with those of the howling monster. Raising his hand in the air, he spoke in a deadly voice. Charge! Naruto awkwardly stood in his spot as 3 sets of curious eyes observed him with rapt attention. 2 of them were smiling bemusedly, while the last one looked curious and alert. Kurenai's gaze was simply set on the small FRM of Rei. To think the ninja world was destroyed for this 6-year-old girl. Thought Kurenai in awe. Even so, she could not rule out the similarities between the little girl and the tall Kaiser. Rei had smooth blonde hair like her father, a nearly identical facial structure, same chin, same lips and the same dark eyes. A perfect little clone of Naruto. She was never much attracted to children, sure she wanted her own in her later years but never had her heart overwhelmed with emotion on seeing any child around her. Yet as she stared at this girl, the lifeless, cold eyes of this child who never even had a chance to understand the meaning of life before it was taken from her. Rei, said Naruto carefully, taking a small step towards the barrier. The child backed away. Kurenai's heart broke on seeing the pain in Naruto's eyes. The Kaiser's hands were trembling and he was trying very hard to control his tears. You killed my root comrades, you killed Danzo-sama, you destroyed Konoha. Traitor! Said Rei angrily, her eyes clearly showing the hurt and pain which she felt. I. Said Naruto helplessly. He had imagined this moment in his entire life, but now that it was happening he didn't know what to say. He couldn't lie to her even if he wanted to, nor could he force his will on her. He could never do that to his own daughter, his first child. Rei, you were told lies. Naruto is your father. Said Sai flatly. Shin's eyes widened in shock as he stared at his 2 best friends. Rei stumbled and fell flat on the ground, tears fell from her eyes and her anger increased. Lies, yelled Rei. Naruto quickly moved forward, and the ninjas holding the barrier instantly dropped the protective measure. The 3 Edo Tensei moved to attack the Kaiser on an impulse, but Naruto's Mangekyo had been activated as he looked them all in the eye. Kurenai had seen many video footage of Naruto casting his ultimate genjutsu on people, and forever turning them into his comrades. But this was the first time she was actually seeing it happen with her own eyes. But something was different. The Kaiser merely overrode the jutsu controlling his beloved ones, and freed them. Never once did he order to become his comrades or serve him, or even manipulate their emotions according to his wishes. You're all traitors, Danzo-sama, said. I had no parents. Said Rei worriedly, feeling quite vulnerable on seeing so many people surrounding her. She had already seen how powerful all of them were, particularly Naruto. She could never defeat him or escape, unless he allowed her to. And just how much time had passed. She had just gone to sleep a few hours ago. He lied. Rei. You're my daughter. Said Naruto gently, never making a move to touch her despite his heart screaming at him to do so. Then where is my mother? You say that you are my father, then where is my mother? Asked Rei sharply, the Reich soldiers and staff baffled when they saw the helplessness in their Kaiser's eyes. Their leader's shoulders were slumping with the weight of that single question. Sai lowered his eyes, and Shin could only sadly stare at his friend's misery. Rei sadly shook her head when she didn't receive an answer to her question. You always lie, Captain Naruto. Said Rei sadly, I am your mother. Every pair of eyes in the room widened. The only sound in the room was those of firm footsteps approaching in the little girl's direction. Rei turned around, and for the first time saw an extremely beautiful woman walking towards her. Every step she took screamed of power, grace and courage. Her shoulders were straight and her mesmerizing ruby-colored eyes were looking at her with determination and compassion. Naruto could not move, could not speak, time seemed to have stopped for him. His eyes widened when Kurenai knelt down and embraced the little girl in her arms. Shin and Sai shared quick nods and nudged their friend. The Kaiser turned towards them, a sea of doubts and reluctance visible in his eyes, but the two boys gave him sharp glares. "Shut up, dimwit," whispered Sai. "I don't know what is going on, but this seems far better than the pathetic performance of yours," muttered Shin, a bemused smile visible on his face. Naruto glared at them. The two roots merely rolled their eyes in return. The Kaiser turned back to the females. To his surprise, the raw anger and mistrust in Rei's eyes had faded away, replaced only by sheer shock and a faint happiness. Unknowingly, the child had wrapped one of her little arms around Kurenai's back. Then it hit Naruto. Family was the most important thing for a young child. He himself had craved so badly for it when he was of Rei's age. Kakashi had definitely filled the spot of father and elder brother, but Naruto never had a mother. At least not until he met Tsunade or Nono. He remembered the lonely nights when he would wonder why his mother had left him alone. And now he knew how important mothers were for a child. Especially for emotionally disturbed ones like Rei, who didn't know what was right or wrong anymore. Just like the Kaiser, Rei was manipulated by others her entire life. More than that, the only memories Rei had of him were him butchering Root ANBU mercilessly. She had every reason to hate and mistrust him, but Kurenai was different. However, could he really place such a burden on her? This was not just a one-time favor, it was a lifelong responsibility which he didn't want to impose on her just to satisfy his own wish. He looked at her, tension and anxiety easily visible in his eyes. Kurenai paused for a moment and merely looked at his troubled face. Then she gave a small smile, and that was the end of it. Naruto couldn't decide whether to be overjoyed or ashamed. Did he even have any right over Rei? The answer was clear, he didn't. "What, I?" said Rei gently, her face relaxing as she stared at Kurenai. Unlike the men, this woman had not tried to claim her like a thing but showed compassion. More than that, a small part of her heart wished that she had a mother like this, or even better, this woman turned out to be her true mother. Her eyes turned towards Naruto asking the unsaid question, and Naruto nodded. "Then, why did you leave me?" asked Rei hesitantly. Kurenai flinched just a little. "The villagers of Konoha were quite biased against your father. They hated him for something which he had no power over, even so we loved each other. Since I am older than him, our relationship was more frowned upon. When you were born to us, the doctors told us that you were dead. Naruto was quite young at that time and he was heartbroken, and I was not allowed to see your body. But the truth was, that you were taken from us," explained Kurenai, the last part said with much anger and bitterness visible in her voice. "But, Danzo-sama," said Rei, but was silenced when Kurenai shook her head. "Shimura Danzo was a traitor who tried to start a civil war in the village. He brainwashed your Root comrades to participate in his evil plans. He tried to do the same thing to you and your father. Naruto tried very hard to save his comrades, but Danzo had gone to great lengths to make people his slaves. In order to save the village, the Hokage himself gave Naruto orders to stop Root," stated Kurenai patiently. "What?" asked Rei in horror. This was not what she had been told. Shin meanwhile also seemed mortified on hearing what Danzo had just done, and closed his eyes when Naruto explained what had happened. "I can give you the proof if you want to see it with your own eyes. You should believe me since I myself was the Godiame Hokage of Konoha," said Kurenai seriously. "You were the fifth?" asked Rei in awe, and saw Kurenai smile a little. "I was," said Kurenai proudly. Rei's mistrustful gaze turned towards Naruto, making the Kaiser flinch a little, but he somehow managed to hold his ground. It is true that Naruto killed everyone, but it was his mission. Your father killed his friends, comrades, superiors, even his leader, but he couldn't bring himself to kill you, said Kurenai flatly. I said Rei doubtfully, now that she thought about it. Naruto had toyed with her the entire time. Even when she had tried to kill him, he had merely defended himself and not harmed her even once. Despite the orders given to him by the Sandaime Hokage. He couldn't kill you because you were his daughter, my daughter, said Kurenai fiercely. Rei's eyes connected with Naruto's. For a moment the Kaiser saw something in her eyes, but it disappeared very quickly for him to cherish it. I can't trust him yet, said Rei cautiously, her eyes darting to every unknown person in the room. Kurenai's heart felt sorry for Naruto, who was doing well in keeping his expressions neutral. But even so, she saw the sadness present in his eyes. Then trust her. I mean you no harm, Rei. Whatever questions or proof you need to ascertain that we are your family shall be provided to you by Kurenai, said Naruto flatly. With those words and one last hesitant glance, the Kaiser started walking towards the exit, followed by Shin and Sai. Captain Naruto. He paused. Slowly turning around, he was surprised to see the girl give him a small, brief bow. Thank you for freeing me, said Rei honestly. I'll always be there for you, Rei. Even if you hate me, promised Naruto. He didn't wait to see her shocked expression and quickly went out of the room. 30 minutes later. Naruto finished explaining to his two best friends the events that had happened across the world while they remained in the afterlife. To say they were shocked would be an understatement. Shin had raised his hand massaging his forehead, while Sai stared at him in shock and respect. I thought you were crazy, but you are insane, said Sai carelessly. The nearby royal guards stared at the boy incredulously, but were stopped from taking any action when Naruto waved his hand. Dickless has minions? Asked Sai in horror. Shin chuckled. I'd like to call them faithful soldiers, if you don't mind, interjected Naruto. Forgive him, Naruto. You know Sai is quite tactless and blunt, said Shin calmly. The two of you haven't changed at all, replied Naruto fondly. You have, main Kaiser. Teased the two root ANBU. Naruto shook his head. For the two of you, I'm just Naruto. To be honest, I never thought I'd see you guys again until I die, said Naruto honestly. Likewise, even so it seems that the world is in quite a mess. But I'm glad that you are in charge and were at least able to achieve your dream. This way, at the very least our deaths were not meaningless, said Shin contently. Dickless here even got 2 women to himself and even sired a kid. You made quite a lot of progress in these past few years, teased Sai. Naruto's eyes turned towards the endless sky, a faraway look arriving in his gaze which neither of his friends missed. It all feels too surreal. The ones worthy of living die, while the ones who should have died long ago keep on living. It should have been you guys in my place, and I in yours, confessed Naruto, his voice heavy and sounding quite aged. Then the world would not be as progressive as it is now. Your methods might have been a little extreme, but you got the job done. You united the world. That is not something anybody had managed to accomplish since the Rikudo Sennin, said Sai seriously. None of us hold you in contempt for what you did or even as to what happened to us. Even when you didn't protect Konoha, you kept its will burning in your heart. And in the end, that's all that matters, said Shin honestly. You guys. So, what happens now? When do we march to fight for you in a world war? Asked Sai curiously. Shin nodded in agreement as well. Naruto gave them a sharp denial in return. I want you to remain here. I'll find some way to bring you back to life. I'm not losing any of you this time, said Naruto fiercely. You can't do that, Naruto. I agree you are the almighty Kaiser, but not a god, chided Shin flatly. He's right, agreed Sai, and saw Naruto smirk. I am Kaiser Naruto, the man who creates worlds and destroys them. don't underestimate my power," said Naruto confidently, as Shin and Sai both cocked their eyebrows in surprise. "You've grown a little arrogant," commented Shin. "Even if you wanted that, it cannot happen. We will assist you in this war and leave for the afterlife later," said Sai frankly, but frowned when Naruto smiled. "Remember the words I used during my jutsu," reminded Naruto. The two Root boys frowned. Glancing at each other, they recited the command Naruto had used while freeing them, and their eyes widened in shock and horror. "Naruto Uchiha commands you, live." At great risk, Shin willed his soul to leave the body it was residing in. And it didn't obey. Sai glanced at Naruto, a look of shock and betrayal visible in his eyes. "You would do this to us?" asked Sai bitterly, and the Kaiser held his friend's gaze. "In time, you shall understand. Choosing your death was your right, but right now you are dead. And dead men have no rights," said Naruto icily. "Naruto, you've changed," said Shin disappointedly. "I have." "Are you that eager to die?" asked Naruto sadly. "No, but we also know there is no way to bring the dead back to life. You've trapped us in these shells like zombies, possibly forever," accused Shin, a little anger seeping inside his voice. "What if I tell you there is a way?" "Then what?" asked Naruto, making the boys look at each other. "And if it fails? Then what?" "Shin and I fucked for eternity," said Sai sharply. "Then I shall remove the genjutsu from you and destroy these bodies, sending you back to the afterlife," said Naruto compassionately, although his friends could see that the Kaiser was quite reluctant with that idea. "But wouldn't that place us back in the control of the original spell of Edo Tensei? Your genjutsu is the only thing keeping our wills free, and even I doubt that's completely true," said Shin frankly. Naruto shook his head in return. "I have given you free will, just not the permission to return back to the afterlife. You can even attack me right now, even kill me, but that would just destroy any chance for you guys to go back. And as for your other question, the moment I release my genjutsu from your souls, you will have a full minute before the original spell takes control. In that time span, you can easily quit this body and go back," explained Naruto patiently. Shin sighed, while Sai grit his teeth. "Even so, you've trapped us. And it's not right," said Shin patiently, "and neither was your decision to die on me. I have lived with that pain for years," accused Naruto bitterly, his fierce gaze making Shin flinch. "We gave our lives for you," suggested Sai, and backed a little when Naruto grabbed his collar. "When did I ever want that? To have my best friends die for me? For years I lived through that pain while being continuously betrayed by everyone whom I ever cared about. I then understood that this world would never honor my wishes, unless I make it do so. Hate me if you want, but look at the other picture. If I am successful, then," hinted Naruto. His friend sighed, then with one look in each other's eyes they gave the Kaiser slow nods. "We've trusted you so far, it won't hurt to do so a little more, but I expect you to release us if you fail," said Shin frankly, looking his friend straight in the eye. "And we will fight in this war for you, and not hide like pansies inside this palace. We're ANBU, don't forget that. More than that, we can't leave your sorry ass alone in this stupid war," said Sai seriously. Naruto smiled. "I promise and agree to all your conditions. And thank you for supporting and believing in me," replied Naruto gratefully. The three of them shared a brief hug, easing the tension much to Naruto's relief. "I just wish Rei can understand too," whispered Naruto sadly. Sai placed a hand on his shoulder. "She's a child, Naruto. You would have acted like that too if you were surrounded by strangers, and admit it or not, Rei saw you butchering her so-called comrades. That type of sight makes it hard for a person to trust you, especially to a child," explained Sai honestly. "Kurenai seems to be doing well. I'm sure she can make your daughter understand, give them some time." suggested Shin. Naruto only gave them a bittersweet smile in return, while suppressing a flinch from arriving on his face. Would you guys like to meet Haku and my son? Asked Naruto suddenly, surprising his friends. The Kaiser saw the two boys awkwardly glancing towards him. Something was definitely bothering them. I don't think that's a good idea, Naruto, said Sai vaguely. Why? Both of us are dead, basically zombies. We don't think it would be good to suddenly throw two dead men to meet a woman who has just given birth. Much less a Kaiserin, our manners. Excused Shin, Naruto sighed. Grabbing the both of them by their necks in a firm grip, he started dragging them towards the Kaiserin's quarters, simply ignoring their silly excuse and protests. Haku will be pleased to meet you. And that's the end of discussion. I'm the Kaiser, damn it. Show some courtesy to me around my minions at least, said Naruto childishly. Fine. But you owe us for this, said both of them in unison. Naruto grunted. Fine. Haku quietly sipped coffee from her mug, her eyes observing the form of her husband holding their son in his arms. She had just finished meeting two of the Kaiser's best friends, ones who played a great part in making Naruto who he was today. And quite frankly, they told her a few things about Naruto she had never heard before. Naruto had also explained the situation with Rei and how Kurenai had stepped forward. Am I doing the right thing, Haku? With Rei and Kurenai? Asked Naruto silently. They are both strong women, Naruto. As far as I know Kurenai, she never ventures into anything unless she is absolutely certain about her feelings and ambitions. Plus, this way Rei will officially become a part of the royal family once we bring her back to life. She will regain her rightful place by your side, and maybe mine too. After all, I will be her mother too, explained Haku, a gentle smile visible on her face. Heh, you make all of this sound so easy. But I like it, a future to come home to. A future to fight for, said Naruto fondly, earning a cackled smile from Yang. Haku gently got up from her bed when she saw Naruto flinch just for a tiny second, placing her hand on his cheek, and she looked him in the eye. Something's troubling you, said Haku clearly. He smiled. Now I know why some people say women have the sharpest intuition. You're right, there is something I need to ask of you. A favor, said Naruto carefully, as she cocked an eyebrow in surprise. Why does the Kaiser even need to ask a favor from someone, much less his wife? Said Haku confusedly. Naruto didn't answer her question right away and instead handed Yang back in her arms. Wordlessly the Kaiser walked towards the window and stood there. I want you to stay in the capital, said Naruto frankly. Why am I not surprised? Asked Haku in exasperation. Haku, I am a warrior like you, Naruto. I was the right commander first before I became your wife and gave that job to Sasuke. If you think that I'm weak dash. She was silenced when Naruto shook his head, and there was something in his eyes that made her stop the protests for a while. Never once have I doubted your abilities as a fighter. But you're something more too, you're a visionary. While I dreamed of this Reich, I worked hard to establish the foundations. You were the one who helped me set up the government, laws, rights and duties of citizens, and much more. This Reich would have collapsed long ago if you hadn't been there to guide me. I am a fighter, Haku. But as a sound ruler, you are far better than me, admitted Naruto. Haku merely gave him a polite smile, neither denying her accomplishments or boasting about it. It's bad, isn't it? Asked Haku knowingly. He nodded. The Akatsuki have everything they need now. I have a feeling by the time I reach the battlefield they would have already received the 10 tails, said Naruto seriously. Haku shivered. Even if she knew Naruto himself was going to revive that monster for Valkyrie, it still terrified her. The resistance outnumbers my forces 3-1, and Akatsuki will also join the war, said Naruto grimly. But you will win, replied Haku fiercely. Naruto gave her a slight smile. I'll fight for it with every drop of blood inside my body, every soldier, every weapon that I have. This is the promise of your Kaiser, I shall not rest unless I achieve victory or fall honorably in battle trying to win a future for everyone. Promised Naruto. And you will come back. Finished Haku, he simply nodded. Many of us won't be so lucky in this war, Haku. It is possible that only a handful of us might return alive, that is why we need to know that we have a home to come back to. If I fall, then the people need to have someone to lead them. My son is too young for that, my daughter is a completely different matter, and Kurenai is neither willing or fit for that role as the people don't trust her yet. But they trust you. Explained Naruto seriously. Will Kurenai go with you in battle? Asked Haku, slight jealousy arriving on her face. I do not know, Haku. I wish she doesn't, but I can't force her just like I cannot force you. That is why I am simply leaving my opinion to both of you, and hope you make the best choice for our people. Said Naruto sincerely. Haku carefully set Yang in his cradle and came beside Naruto. Wrapping her arms around him, she laid a gentle kiss on his cheek. You can do it, Naruto. Never ever doubt that. Said Haku confidently. I never wanted to be a leader, Haku. To have the weight of the entire world, the fate of humanity on my shoulders. A part of me feels proud of what I have managed to achieve so far, but another knows the disaster standing in front of them. What if I fail? What if I don't turn out to be the man everyone is thinking that I am? All those soldiers, civilians, children, my friends and family, you, my own children. It is too heavy a burden. Confessed Naruto. Haku choked back a sob as she gently rubbed his back. She could only try to imagine the burden he carried on his shoulders, and only when he was simply 20 years old. Barely an adult in the Reich. And yet. You've brought all of us this far, Naruto. I believe in you, so does everyone else. Take strength from that, and don't worry, I shall handle the kingdom you've fought so hard to protect. I give you my word. Promised Haku. He leaned back and kissed her passionately on the lips, savoring her taste, her smell, the feeling of the tears rolling down her cheeks. His hands explored her body, memorizing each and every curve, the softness of her skin, the smoothness of her hair, and most of all her beautiful eyes. I love you, Haku. Said Naruto happily. I love you even more, Naruto. Replied Haku, tears falling from her eyes. With one last kiss, Naruto walked towards his now sleeping son. He kneeled down and placed a tender kiss on his forehead. Stroking the infant's dark black hair, he spoke in a hushed voice. Listen to your mother, serve the kingdom before anything, and remember that your father loves you very much. Said Naruto kindly, then taking a deep breath to calm his heavy heart, he turned around and gave a crisp salute to the Kaiserin. A gesture which she returned, pride shining in her eyes. I appoint you regent until my return, Kaiserin. May you serve the people of this Reich well. Wished the Kaiser, I shall do so, mein Kaiser. Replied Haku courageously. With one last glance, Naruto departed. And Haku's eyes continued to stare at his retreating form until he completely disappeared from her vision. A full day had passed. The masked man had never in his entire life seen a defensive battle as powerful as this. In front of him stood the tall Gedo Mazo, and for the first time in its entire history its movements were slower than before. With good reason. The Akatsuki leader stared at the hundreds of corpses of the SS Guard lying around the battlefield. Many had been crushed, several torn apart, some completely obliterated, some had their souls stolen, yet they had fought fiercely. Led bravely by the last Senju, and the talented Gaara, the Reich had been successful in keeping even the Gedo Mazo from reaching its impenetrable walls. Although it came with a cost. Tsunade had been mortally wounded in battle, and had to be taken back behind the walls. The Senju and her slug had after all taken a direct electric pulse attack fired by the Gedo Mazo which were aimed for the walls. And now the battlefield consisted of a heavily bleeding Gaara still holding his ground. Beside him stood his two last SS soldiers, equally exhausted and badly wounded. He never allowed reinforcements to come out of the walls and be slaughtered. Even when it comes to his life, Gaara knows that his Kaiser will now arrive shortly. A truly admirable man, thought the masked man. Across the battlefield, Gaara coughed blood violently. His sand-floating platform faltered just a little. He had wounds all over his body and had lost up to a considerable amount of blood. His remaining two soldiers also seemed to be saving their last breaths, as all of them saw the Gedo Mazo preparing another beam. "Commander, at this point, all our comrades are dead and our own chakra is over." At this point, said his second-in-command, a 25-year-old black-haired man. The two SS saw Gaara staring at the ground beneath his feet. His gaze low. "I wasn't accepted or loved by my village or my family," confessed Gaara. His soldiers readied their weapon as the monster's attack grew larger and larger in size. "It's like I've fought every battle merely to prove myself to the biased people in the world. If not for an era like this, I would have never moved high enough to become an army commander," said Gaara sadly, raising his hand weakly in the air. He created a powerful sand wave as tall as the Gedo Mazo. His eyes connected with those of the masked man, as both the men shared a look. "Despite that, I was able to battle hard enough to come this close to the masked man," said Gaara tiredly. Turning back, he stared in the far-off distance, where he was sure his comrades were watching him. Raising his trembling right hand in a weak salute, he stood straight and said proudly, "I've done as much as I could." Boom! Kakashi closed his eyes when a devastating explosion obliterated the entire field, and with that last attack both the Gedo Mazo and the masked man vanished away. A lone tear slipped from his eye when Niji spoke in a grief-stricken voice. "The SS guard has been wiped out. Commander Sabaka no Gaara died in battle." Naruto had a murderous glare in his eyes as he observed the two women in front of him. To their credit, neither of them flinched even as the Kaiser fumed in front of them. The same was not the case with Haku, Enko, Hinata, and the Reich soldiers standing around them. Shin and Sai remained on the sides, observing the conflict with bemused smiles. "Have you lost your mind?" asked Naruto furiously. "I have not. Haku is more than capable of managing the affairs of the Reich. More than that, none of us know what the situation is on the battlefield. We need as many powerful warriors to back up our comrades fighting at the front," said Kurenai rationally. "I can understand why you would want to accompany me, and if the circumstances were different I would have gladly agreed to it. But you can't possibly think I can allow Rei to accompany us to a war zone? She's a child, for Kami's sake," said Naruto frustratedly. "You don't own me, Captain Naruto. Besides, I am a dead girl, nobody can possibly hurt me more," said Rei flatly. Naruto flinched on hearing that. Haku had to bite her lip in order to hide a small bemused smile when both father and daughter engaged in an intense staring contest. If Naruto was adamant, then Rei was rebellious. "And I don't trust you or your people around here. I'd like to be around her," said Rei stubbornly, pointing towards Kurenai, who sighed. "You." By this point, Naruto's fists had clenched deeply. His face was becoming redder, making every other person around him tense as the Kaiser had unknowingly started to leak a small amount of Ki. "I'll look after her. Make sure she doesn't get herself in trouble." Naruto blinked, his anger faded for a moment as he watched Hinata coming forward. The former Hyuga heiress knelt down and gave Rei a small welcoming smile. The Kaiser still looked unwilling. "Besides, if you truly want to revive her, then you need her around. How can you bring her or your friends back to life if you are on the battlefield and they are here in the capital?" suggested Haku, remaining purely rational and not taking anyone's side. Naruto looked around and saw the majority of his people agreed with their Kaiserin's suggestion, while the remaining were undecided. He looked at Kurenai, who gave him a polite, requesting stare. Rei merely huffed when he tried to look her in the eye, while Shin and Sai shrugged. Fine, but you better not do anything stupid to put yourself in danger, Chibi. Advised Naruto. Right back at you, perv, retorted Ray. Many people had their jaws hanging open in shock on seeing their leader be called such a thing in public. To their surprise, Naruto merely smiled ruefully while massaging his forehead. Guess the apple doesn't fall from the tree. Now I know how Kakashi must have felt a few years ago. Thought Naruto nostalgically. Kneeling down, he placed a hand on the little girl's head. At first she was about to resist the touch, but didn't do so when she looked at the concern in his eyes. You're right. Ray, you are a free person, and I understand that bringing you along is necessary if I want to bring you back. But you have to promise me that you will listen to Kurenai and Hinata all the time. All of us here want what's best for you and are your comrades. If you need anything or have any questions, my door is always open for you. Do you understand, Ray? Asked Naruto patiently, ignoring the approving look sent towards him by the females. I guess so, said Ray hesitantly, her cheeks becoming a little flushed. Why was he being so nice despite how badly she treated him? Good. I'm proud of you, replied Naruto happily. Ray's eyes widened on hearing those words. She didn't know whether Naruto's words matched with what he felt inside his heart, but his eyes seemed honest, sincere and full of love for her. Is that the first time anybody has said that to you? Asked Naruto knowingly, easily reading her thoughts from the shock visible in her eyes. How do you said Ray blankly. Naruto hesitated at first, but after a moment he placed a hand on her cheek. And this time she neither flinched or resisted. You and I are more alike than you can imagine, Ray. And I mean what I said, not only because you are a good fighter but you have inherited everything good that I have. Even more, and for that I am proud of you, said Naruto honestly. The blonde girl touched his hand on her cheek, and gave him a small smile which nearly melted Naruto's heart. Thank you. That is the nicest thing anyone has said to me, said Ray shyly. You'll get more. You shall have everything you desire, I promise. Kurenai and Haku watched the father-daughter duo interact with each other properly for the first time. Haku looked at Kurenai and saw the woman smiling while glancing at the Kaiser and Ray. Should I be jealous of a little girl? Asked Haku light-heartedly. Kurenai smirked. You should. He loves her even more than the both of us combined, but I guess it's a good thing, said Kurenai. Are you sure about your decision? Asked Haku seriously, concern evident in her eyes. I'm as much certain as you were when you agreed to let Naruto marry me. Even so, I want to get to know her, look after her. I grew up as an orphan too, so I know what it's like to have at least someone who cares about you, explained Kurenai softly. Aren't you worried that she may find out the truth someday? What will you do then? Asked Haku worriedly, making Kurenai sigh. I have given her enough evidence to make her understand that she can trust us, at least me. I managed to convince her that Root was on the wrong side only because of Danzo and was stopped by Naruto. I also had ample proof to prove Naruto was her father, and I her mother, said Kurenai frankly. You can do that? Asked Haku in surprise. I was a Hokage, remember? I see, said Haku, getting the point the ruby-eyed woman was trying to make. Besides, when she finds out that I am not her birth mother, she is free to make her choice. There are many people in the world who are not related to us by blood, yet we care about them, love them with everything in our heart. While blood is important, love is the one that counts. And even if she wants to deny it, she will have to accept the fact that Naruto is her real father. That truth cannot be changed by even Kami himself, explained Kurenai patiently, compassion and care shining through her eyes. I understand your point. If Rei is truly revived, she will be a part of the royal family. She will be Naruto's first child, a princess, and can have everything that was taken from her in her previous life. She will have family, friends, people who truly care about her. I'd say in comparison to that bright picture, a necessary lie does not sound that bad. Even so, we will reveal the truth to her once she's of age. Suggested Haku, agreed. I wouldn't want anything else. Consented Kurenai, you're truly a kind woman, Yuhi Kurenai. I'm glad to have you as a part of our family. Said Haku happily, the fates seem to have been kind on us so far, Kaiserin. Replied Kurenai with a smile. They leaned forward, exchanging a brief, warm hug. Then let us hope they continue to do so forever. And please protect Naruto, he can be an arrogant bastard at times. But he is our best hope for a future, not only for ourselves but for everyone in this Reich. Requested Haku, I understand. I shall support him with everything I've got, this I promise. Said Kurenai sincerely, that is all I ask. Naruto smiled on seeing his two female partners share a happy moment. His attention was summoned elsewhere when Rei tapped his hand and pointed her finger towards Anko, who was eating a very familiar dish. What is that, Captain? Asked Rei curiously. Will you stop calling me that? Call me Dad, or Kaiser, or Dash. Perv, finished Rei, a naughty smirk arriving on her lips when she saw Naruto sigh. That thing is known as Anko. Replied Naruto, a smirk marrying his lips even when Anko gave him a pointed, mean stare. Not her. The thing she is eating. Said Rei seriously. The snake mistress had heard their little chat concerning her and the holy dish in her hand, and came forward. Kneeling down, she offered the food of the gods to the girl. Learn about the holy dish, you ignorant brat. Said Anko in a divine voice. Rei gave Naruto a deadpan look. Anko's just insane, ignore her. Replied Naruto jokingly. Rei giggled. Naruto smiled as Anko started preaching the godly dish which was dango to the little girl. Rei listened with fascinating curiosity, even asking for a bite. Kaiser, just how much time would it take for us to reach the war front? Asked Mifune, a former samurai leader. The old man looked curiously as the Kaiser nodded. Biting his lip, Naruto performed a set of hand seals before slamming it on the ground. Hundreds of small, medium and large puffs of smoke happened across the sky. The largest one was as wide as a cloud. Everyone stared in surprise and awe as the entire sky was full of crows of all sizes. Small, medium, large, all accompanied by the largest one flying in the center. What are you waiting for, Commander? The fleet's here. Said Naruto casually. As you wish, Kaiser. Replied Mifune swiftly. The old man quickly started mounting the nearly 500 samurai and a few ninjas on the birds. Naruto smiled coolly when he saw Rei stare at him with a slight respect in her eyes. Want a bird for yourself and Hinata alone? Asked Naruto kind-heartedly. The reply was obvious. Hell yeah. Naruto smiled when he heard Rei yell enthusiastically as her bird soared quickly through the endless sky. Hinata had caught the girl by her waist, preventing her from falling off the bird, but even that hadn't stopped the little rocket from spreading her hands and enjoying the feeling of flying in the sky. To have the wind touch her body. It almost reminded him of his own younger self. The innocent child that existed, the one who vanished once on entering Route ANBU Black Ops. Look at that, she looks so happy. Said Naruto fondly, as Kurenai nodded. Both of them were sitting on top of the boss crow, which while slower than the others was flying at the highest height in the sky. From their position, Kurenai could observe their entire fleet. She could see Anko casually eating her dango, and occasionally ordering her crow to fly faster and faster. The crow didn't seem to share the same feeling though. Mifune and the soldiers seemed content, since this way they wouldn't have to march for a day to reach the battlefield. Now they could arrive at their destination in a matter of a few hours. Rei and Hinata seemed to be enjoying the most out of their fly ride. Shin and Sai were chatting with each other, while occasionally sending nods to their best friend. She sure does. It is moments such as this that remind us as to how precious life is. Said Kurenai contently, and saw Naruto staring at her. Kurenai, Are you really sure about this? Ray, said Naruto hesitantly, I've already made up my mind, Naruto. And besides, I always wanted a daughter of my own, said Kurenai calmly, a smile visible on her face. You know, I can make that wish come true anytime you want. Teased Naruto. She punched his arm in return. And you think pregnancy would keep me away from the battlefield? I will be a part of this war, one way or another, said Kurenai fiercely. Fine, agreed Naruto, with a sigh. I just want you to know I'm truly indebted to you for everything you have done for me, said Naruto gratefully, as she entwined her arm with his own. You have been kind to me too. I guess I'm returning the favor, replied Kurenai calmly. Agreed. Naruto, what do you see for us in the future? Asked Kurenai curiously, as the Kaiser looked across the sky. A few years of ruling, at least until our children grow up and are ready to take our legacy forward. Then I'd like for us to retire somewhere quiet, a place where I could be near the water and enjoy sunsets with you and Haku. Nothing would please me more, said Naruto hopefully. She gently kissed him on the cheek, as he stared at her. Then let us win this war. For our future, encouraged Kurenai. He nodded enthusiastically. For our future. Naruto had to fight extremely hard when his eyes first caught sight of his own army camp. The very first glance that his Sharingan eyes showed him was enough to prove something horrible had happened. An entire aura of doom, defeat, sadness and grief was felt across the entire camp. The men's shoulders were slumped, many had dead eyes, some were crying, some were numb. Only a handful had the strength or will to even stand up when their Kaiser came in front of them. The only good thing was the fact that the Yuzu wall was still standing, and the enemy didn't seem to have been successful in breaching their gigantic defense. Kurenai kept her face neutral even when she spotted how defeated the soldiers looked. Even Naruto's newly arrived presence among them did little to boost their morale. It was as if these men and women had seen the apocalypse, and knew that their ends were imminent no matter how hard they fought. The final straw came when the leader of this army arrived with all the high-ranking officers. And right there, Naruto saw something had gone wrong. Very wrong. As Kakashi approached the Kaiser, never once did the man lift his gaze or did his shoulders straighten. Shino and Neji had solemn looks in their eyes. What happened? Asked Naruto, keeping his voice steady and in control. But it was becoming quite difficult with this uneasy feeling inside his gut. Kakashi remained silent, so did the others. I said what happened. And where the hell are Sasuke, Gaara, or even Tsunade? Demanded the Kaiser. No matter how grim the situation could be, those three and at least the leaders of the SS Guard had to show the courtesy of greeting their leader on his arrival. Naruto waited for Kakashi or anyone else to say something, but nobody said a word. Their eyes looked anywhere but Naruto's own stone-cold gaze. He roughly grabbed Kakashi by the chin and harshly lifted the man's face to meet his gaze. Naruto's heart stopped. Kakashi Hatake was crying. Kurenai had to urgently grab Naruto from the back when the Kaiser's legs betrayed him instantly. A look of pure terror was visible in the man's eyes, as if someone had just stolen a part of his soul from his heart. Kakashi, answer me. Where are they? Asked Naruto in a trembling voice. The man only pointed a shaky finger in a certain direction where a large tent was standing at a distance. Kurenai quickly signaled Hinata to take Lei away, as she supported Naruto in the long walk to the tent. The longest and hardest one any of them had ever taken. Naruto was stoic the entire way. His face betraying nothing, his lips saying nothing, she couldn't even hear him breathing. The silence was frightening, the atmosphere chilly as if the death god himself was hovering over their heads whispering silently into their ears. With shaky fingers, Kurenai opened the entrance to the tent and only she along with Naruto stepped inside. At first she noticed the entire place was empty, except for one thing. The only thing inside the tent were two wooden coffins, each of which contained the still forms of Sasuke and Gaara respectively. Naruto fell on his knees, and this time Kurenai couldn't protect his fall since her own hands had reached to cover her mouth. First there was the eternal silence. The Kaiser lay still on his knees, his eyes fixed on the corpses of the two boys, who were his brothers. In Sasuke's case, the boy was actually a brother and best friend, while Gaara was the Kaiser's adoptive little brother, one whom the Kaiser loved and looked after. And now both of these boys had their eyes closed, their chests still, bodies cold, and faces extremely pale, completely devoid of life. Naruto screamed. A shout as powerful as raging thunder made out of feelings of grief, anger, pain coursed through the entire camp. The sound continued to cross distances more and more, its effects reaching both eternal heaven and hell. And then Naruto turned toward her. Kurenai fell on her knees as an unbelievable killing intent descended upon the area. The look in Naruto's eyes was even more monstrous than that of the Kyuubi itself. His eyes had slit and Mangekyo activated. Demonic chakra started leaking from his body, and there was only one thing this monster standing in front of her desired: blood. Her shock and fear had paralyzed her, making her movements slow. As a result, she was not able to move out of the way when Naruto ran towards the exit. With such force did he collide with her, that it sent her sailing right out of the tent. She coughed as she crashed on the ground. Nearby she saw the same fear in everyone's eyes. Her eyes saw Kakashi and a few others run to stop the Kaiser, and she yelled an urgent warning. Fortunately, they stopped just for a moment to stare at her. Naruto crouched on his hands and knees. His nails grew longer than talons. 9 large tails made up of Kyuubi chakra sprang from his back as he gave a bloodthirsty cry. And then he charged. Running like an animal on all fours, he started climbing higher and higher over the Yuzu wall, cracking every stone that he touched. And a moment later, he flew over the sky, disappearing out of their sight. Not a second later, Kakashi came running towards her. "We must stop him," said Kakashi urgently. "Blood must answer for blood," whispered Kurenai hauntedly. "But said Kakashi hesitantly, "do not try to stop him today, Kakashi, or risk meeting your own end this day," warned Kurenai. "Prepare a company. I shall lead them and go after the Kaiser," said Kurenai seriously. Kakashi gave a shaky nod. "What will he do?" asked Shino nervously. Kurenai closed her eyes. "A genocide." There were times when Kurenai wondered how cannibalistic humans were. They might appear to be civil, consider themselves above all the other species on the planet, boast of their knowledge and wisdom. But in the end, they were all animals. As she stood in the ruins of what appeared to be a forward camp of the resistance, in the midst of thousands of dead bodies lying as far as the eyes could see, the red-eyed beauty wondered how dangerous humans were, not just to each other, but to the entire world. The entire ground beneath her feet was filled with rivers of blood, limbs, heads, tattered weapons, and burning resistance flags. Fires raged across the entire land. The moon shone brightly in the sky, and in a far distance she heard the sound of vultures crying. A massive feast awaited for them. Behind her, she heard Kakashi whisper that this was once an enemy camp full of 20,000 resistance soldiers. Each and every one of them was dead. Men, women, teenagers, old warriors lay scattered everywhere. A haunted look visible in those who still had their eyes open. There was so much silence that it sent shivers down her soul. In the midst of this hell, stood Naruto. The blood-soaked man now stood tall on his 2 feet, his hands reverted to their original forms, chakra tails vanished. His shoulders slumped, eyes lifeless. Drops of blood still falling from his hands. Kurenai wanted to move towards him, to embrace him, to comfort him, but she couldn't even speak. If one thing was certain in this unending moment was the fact that she was scared of him. Kakashi bravely stepped forward, embracing the blood-stained Kaiser, and whispered something in the dead man's ears that somehow managed to reignite a tiny spark of life back inside him. Naruto simply raised his hands numbly, signifying he meant no further harm to anyone, and wordlessly Kurenai stepped towards him along with several Reich soldiers. A few minutes later, they all returned safely behind the walls. The door to the medical station was roughly slammed open. The medics hovering around a bed instantly made way as a now clean Naruto, dressed in fresh robes, ran inside. A soft chuckle escaped from a weary person's lips. Naruto had both his arms extended as he approached towards her. In front of him lay an old woman. Her once blonde hair had now turned gray, her face, which radiated beauty, was now full of wrinkles, her skin loose, her eyes remained the same. Yet they were tired. Tsunade, thought Kurenai in horror. She stilled a gasp on seeing the last Senju's body had been nearly split in half. Most of her skin had severe burns along with several deep wounds all across her body. Kurenai looked towards the doctors. "Mother," whispered Naruto, in a broken voice. Kneeling beside the old woman, he took her hand in his grasp, squeezing it affectionately. Tsunade's eyes moved towards him. "Kaiser, Naruto," said Tsunade weakly. The foster mother saw some wounds on Naruto's body, and spoke in a near whisper. "Are you all right?" Tsunade, "Thanks to you." "Can you see?" asked Naruto tearfully. She coughed blood. "Naruto, I won't be able to serve you anymore. Forgive me," said Tsunade sadly. Naruto vehemently shook his head, his eyes full of tears now. "Fool! What are you talking about? The doctors will heal you soon, these wounds will heal quickly. When you're well again, we shall visit Haku and my son," said Naruto persistently. She stared at him in surprise. "Prince was born?" asked Tsunade, her voice happy and full of hope. "Yes, his name is Yang." "Won't you like to visit your grandson?" said Naruto, his voice faltering just a little. Tsunade took a sharp breath. A panicked look arrived in her eyes as she looked the young boy straight in the eye. "Main Kaiser," whispered Tsunade, "don't talk too much. Save your energy," pleaded Naruto. "Please, win the universe," requested Tsunade, receiving an urgent nod from Naruto. "Yes, of course. With you," promised Naruto. She smiled. "And, please, tell Kaiserin, Haku, that Tsunade kept her promise of long ago," whispered Tsunade. Naruto placed a hand on her forehead. His eyes literally begged her. "No. I won't tell her that. You'll tell her yourself, in person." "I don't want to tell her, understand? We will visit Haku together," Tsunade begged Naruto. She raised her hand, wiping away a tear from the Kaiser's face, then her eyes closed forever. A peaceful expression arrived on her calm face. Naruto froze. "Tsunade, answer me," yelled Naruto, squeezing her grasped hand even tighter. "Tsunade, say something. Tsunade." Someone placed a gentle hand over his shoulder. The crying leader turned around and saw Kurenai giving him a sympathetic gaze. "It's no use. She's dead, Naruto. Tsunade shall rest in peace now," said Kurenai compassionately. He slapped her hand away. "Don't lie to me, Kurenai. You're lying. Tsunade wouldn't die before I do," said Naruto vehemently. The crying Kaiser pleadingly grabbed the sleeping old woman's shoulders and slowly started shaking them. "Now, open your eyes, Tsunade. 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 Tsunade." 2 days later. Complete silence prevailed in the small tent as the Reich army leaders solemnly stared at each other's faces. Kakashi sat at the center of the table, his eyes calmly observing Shin and Niji sitting to his right. Sai and Shino sat on the left. None of them had said a word to each other even after half an hour of sitting in front of each other. Then the door opened, as Kurenai walked in. Some of them got up on their feet, expectations evident in their eyes. "How is Main Kaiser?" asked Kakashi, already knowing the answer. "As usual," sitting quietly beside the dead. Replied Kurenai sadly. All of them shook their heads in despair. Still, I never imagined the great Kaiser Naruto was that fragile. Said Neji disappointedly. You're wrong, Neji. Said Shino sharply. Why? Asked the Hyuga. If you or I died there wouldn't be so much grieving, but those three are special. We're special, corrected Shino, his voice lacking any confidence. It's as if Kaiser Naruto has lost half of his own self. And that to this stupid war. Said Kakashi bitterly. The army is slowly falling apart too. Informed Kurenai. Slam. What's the matter with all of you? Have you given up so easily? Asked Sai angrily. What can we do when our leader himself has given up? Said Neji contritely, receiving a glare from Shin. You expect your leader to lead you to victory, yet refuse to make him stand back on his feet once he falters. What useless subordinates! Scolded Shin. Oh, and now I need to learn things from a zombie? Asked Neji bitterly. Both Root ANBU glared at him. At least we tried to help Naruto. Same goes for Kurenai and Kakashi. What have you and Shino done so far? Asked said flatly. Kakashi and Kurenai sighed when another quarrel started among their comrades. Both of them were about to intervene forcefully, when Shino simply picked up nearby water bottles and tossed water on the faces of all three quarreling boys. Main Kaiser himself is enduring his own suffering. The rest of US should stop such disgraceful acts and help him. Said Shino seriously. But how? We tried everything, but Naruto even refused to meet us. He even refused to see Rei. Said Kurenai frustratedly. If he doesn't even want to see his beloved daughter or Kurenai, then we are doomed. Said Shin worriedly. Troublesome. Whispered Sai. Neji sighed. There is one person whom the Kaiser cannot avoid meeting. Suggested Shino. Every set of his eyes shifted towards him as the Aburame patiently explained what he had in mind. Naruto numbly sat in his chair, one hand covering his face. Beside him lay three special coffins, each holding an important person from his family. A few liquor bottles lay astray nearby. His clothes were old, unchanged, and his own body had not been washed the entire time. His tears had long since dried up, replaced only by this numb feeling inside his chest. He couldn't even stand to hear Kurama's voice, and had shut the Biju away. Every one of his supporters had tried to speak to him, only to be yelled at and sent away. He had even shouted at Rei to go away, a completely disgraceful act for a Kaiser. Yet he didn't care. Why should he fight when the outcome was already decided? He was destined to fail no matter how hard he tried. The ones close to him would always die, and he would always be this helpless. The door opened again, and he shouted at the intruder to go away. Instead, the footsteps remained on course. Drowsily, the Kaiser opened his eyes and saw a familiar person kneeling before him. I told you to go away, Shino. Said Naruto rudely. Forgive me, main Kaiser. But there is someone who wants to meet you. Replied Shino calmly, his voice betraying nothing. I have no interest in meeting anyone. Get out of my sight or I'll kill you. Threatened Naruto. Shino looked him straight in the eye. It's Sakura. Naruto instantly rose to his feet, violently grabbed Shino by the throat and slammed him into a nearby wall. Bastard, you brought her here didn't you? Accused Naruto furiously. He only received a blank stare in return. I did. Confessed Shino. How dare you? Whispered Naruto icily. I'm afraid it's beyond even your power to hide from the world forever. Said Shino flatly. Shut up, yelled Naruto. Are you afraid to face your brother's widow? Asked Shino directly, stunning Naruto for a moment. What? If not, please speak with her. Requested Shino. Naruto grit his teeth, his grip on Shino's throat tightening even further. Even so, the man stared at him with those cold, rational eyes. Main Kaiser, I am not forsaking you. Said Shino seriously. Naruto squeezed harder. You mustn't torture yourself like this, nor leave all your responsibilities to your subordinates alone," said Shino icily. Naruto flinched. His grip on the man's neck loosened a little. "More importantly, rather than dwelling on the past, you must confront the future. Otherwise, this is as far as you can get," said Shino flatly, still maintaining his stoic gaze. The Kaiser let go of his grip on Shino's neck, but still stared at him. "If the universe falls into the hands of someone else, then these three will look down in shame from the afterlife," said Shino honestly, his tone still neutral. Naruto closed his eyes, his clenched fists opened again as he released a heavy breath. His shoulders straightened again, and with one last glance towards the three coffins, the Kaiser started walking towards the exit. A few seconds later, Aburame was left all alone in the room. Shino stepped beside Sasuke's coffin, and laid a gentle hand on it. "Shadows must accompany their light, but if the light dims, don't the shadows, too?" asked Shino sadly. Naruto stoically stood in his spot as Sakura walked inside the room. It had been a while since they had last seen each other, and he instantly spotted the developments in her. Sakura's belly had grown, a clear proof of the good news Sasuke had given him before departing from the capital. The girl's eyes had deep dark circles beneath them, clear signs of weeping. Her face showed how weary and tired she was, yet the medic still walked gracefully and now stood before him. "Sakura, said Naruto hesitantly, unable to find the right words to say to her. "Poor Naruto, now you have nothing left to lose, do you?" asked Sakura sympathetically. The Kaiser shook his head and placed his hands around her shoulders. "No, I still have you." "Don't I, Sakura?" "Don't I?" pleaded Naruto. She gave a sad nod. "Yes, we have nothing left but each other," replied Sakura numbly. "Naruto, I am going back to the capital. I can't continue to fight in this war any longer," said Sakura honestly, her hand unconsciously reaching for her belly. "Sakura," said Naruto, "I'll go and aid the Kaiserin. I also think we shouldn't see each other for a while," stated Sakura seriously. Naruto closed his eyes. "Sakura, said Naruto helplessly, "I shouldn't be near you. Our ways of life are too different. For me there is only the past. But for you and everyone else, there is still a future," said Sakura sympathetically. Naruto lowered his gaze, his hands hesitantly touching Sakura's belly. "Naruto, once all of this is over and you are weary, please come to see me." "But you must not be weary yet," said Sakura frankly. He nodded. "I understand," replied Naruto. "If this is what you want, Sakura, I shall do as you ask. After I keep my pledge to Tsunade, after I win the universe, I shall come and visit you," promised Naruto. Sakura leaned forward and laid a tender kiss on his forehead and caressed his cheek for a moment. Naruto stares at her, his eyes burning with an unanswered question. "Before you go, Sakura, I need to ask you something," said Naruto seriously. Was Sasuke truly happy about becoming a father? He received a tearful nod in return. Half an hour later, Shino saw the Kaiser swiftly exiting from the room. Naruto saw the man giving him a respectful bow as he started walking forward. A fire burned in his eyes which managed to surprise many of his soldiers who straightened up themselves on seeing him walk like this. The Kaiser's eyes dared anyone to despair, and fortunately no one had the courage to do so. Naruto grimly nodded to himself. "Yes, I will take the universe. When I think of the enormity of what I have lost, if I can't achieve at least that, then what will I do?" There were proud smiles on everyone's face when Naruto walked inside the command center. He was welcomed with a round of applause. Several officers were openly cheering for him. Kurenai and Kakashi were smiling, Shin and Sai looked satisfied, and Niji gave a nod. The Kaiser surprised everyone when he stepped in front of Shino, and extended his hand to the boy. "Congratulations, Sandame," said Naruto flatly. Everyone gasped in surprise on hearing that. Naruto didn't say anything more. Shino stared in shock even as Naruto took out the insignia from his own pocket and placed them on Shino's chest over his imperial uniform, thereby finalizing his appointment as the Third Reich Army commander. He looked around and to further his surprise, everyone gave a nod of consent. Shocked, he looked at Naruto. Bring honor and glory to the Reich, just like your predecessors, instructed Naruto. Shino knelt before him and gave a deep, respectful bow. I will, Main Kaiser, promised Shino. Naruto nodded. Turning towards the others, he looked them all straight in the eye. First of all, I shall promote Tsunade Senju posthumously to the rank of Supreme Commander of the Reich Forces. The same goes for Sasuke Uchiha and Sabaka no Gaara. All of them shall be awarded the Root Cross, declared Naruto. There was a round of solemn nods, and Kurenai saw Naruto taking a deep breath. In all of my previous campaigns, I was rewarded with victory not because of defense but because of my powerful offense. In this war, I neglected that fact and tried to take a cautious approach since the enemy outnumbered us, and as a result Hachiman punished me considerably. Hereby, I shall amend that mistake, said Naruto loudly. What is your desire, Main Kaiser? Asked Kurenai devotedly. Mobilize our entire army. We shall march beyond this wall and meet the enemy army head-on. In one single battle, we shall crush them once and for all, declared Naruto. Kaiser, warned Kakashi, but Naruto raised his hand. I know what you must be thinking, but I ask that you believe in me this once. I know I have not been a good role model these past few days, but if you follow my plan then victory can be ours, insisted Naruto. We should do as the Kaiser asks, said Shin confidently. He alone slaughtered 20,000 enemy soldiers on his own. Do you still doubt his power? Demanded Sai. Naruto smiled when one by one the remaining high-ranked officers knelt before him. He gave a thankful nod to Kurenai and his two best friends. We shall split our forces into 4 parts. Kakashi will command the left wing, Mifune will lead the right wing, Shino will command the rear and maintain chain of command throughout the battlefield. Yuhi Kurenai shall lead from the front. Understood? Asked Naruto seriously. Hi, replied all of them in unison. I give you 1 full day to make all the necessary preparations. I myself shall participate as the Supreme Commander of all forces, said Naruto confidently. Whoa. The Kaiser himself. Maybe now we can really win. Naruto didn't pay any heed to the praises being showered on him. Instead he motioned Suigetsu to step towards him. The boy did so. Prepare Itachi Uchiha for a meeting. I need to have a chat with him, said Naruto icily. Next day, the bright rays of the morning sun shone brightly across the vast lands. A tall blonde boy stood alone in a newly created cemetery, having just finished placing flowers on the 3 important graves lying in front of him. There were hundreds of other graves too, but his eyes were fixed only on these 3. Apart from the names of the people and their birth and death dates, only 2 important words were chiseled on each of their tombstones. Sasuke Uchiha, my brother. Sabaka no Gaara, my friend. Tsunade Senju, my mother. Naruto closed his eyes, offering one firm salute to these heroes. Taking a deep breath, he looked towards the sky. Already, I have nothing left to lose. But even so, I will fight. To keep my promise to all of you, and to gain something to quench the thirst in my heart. With those thoughts, Kaiser Naruto turned around and started taking the long walk towards the battlefield. December 29th, Imperial Year 5, the universe prepared itself for the final war. Naruto sat on the edge of his bed, his feet sticking to the ground while his body remained seated on the soft sheet. If one thing was absolutely noticeable was the fact that he was naked, and beside him lay Kurenai, completely naked as well. He stared at her, his fingers gently moving through her bare back. She moaned sleepily. A few moments later she woke up, laid a passionate kiss on his lips and settled for wrapping herself around his chest. He simply laid his chin on her head, kissed her softly and then breathed a contented sigh. "That was awesome," said Kurenai happily. He smiled. "I know. Maybe after this is over, we can do this more often," suggested Naruto, earning a soft kiss on his chest in return. "I would like that," replied Kurenai cheerfully. They sat there in silence for a few more minutes, until Kurenai looked at his face, which seemed to be relaxed, yet his eyes showed he was in deep thought. "Marry me," said Kurenai suddenly. Naruto blinked. Then a coy smile arrived on his face. "Oh, last I remember you didn't seem to share this sentiment when I asked you a few days ago," asked Naruto bemusedly. She sighed. "I was tense at the time. The war had just started and we were being attacked from all sides, and Haku was on the verge of giving birth. I didn't feel that it was the right moment," explained Kurenai honestly. "And it is now?" asked Naruto patiently. "Yes, after the events of these past few days I think I'd rather get married and regret it later, than not and regret it," said Kurenai fiercely. "Well said, Kurenai. I accept your proposal. This is even better than mine," said Naruto in a satisfied voice. She smirked. "Well, I am smarter than you when it comes to dealing with people," replied Kurenai sarcastically. He simply laughed. "So, how do you want to do it?" asked Naruto seriously. "Just the two of us should be enough. We have already signed the legal paperwork in advance, now all that's left is the ceremony," suggested Kurenai. "And you sure you don't want anyone else to attend?" asked Naruto seriously. "We will have a public ceremony after the war. But for now I want this memory to be exclusive just to the two of us. I also brought these," said Kurenai happily. She turned towards the other side, exposing her back to him. He sighed contentedly. "You know, I really like your gorgeous back," praised Naruto. Smiling, Kurenai turned back towards him, pressing her chest against his own and presenting 2 rings to him. "I am pleased that the Kaiser is happy with me," teased Kurenai, as Naruto stared at the ring he had given her before. "You kept it?" asked the surprised Kaiser. "Are you stupid?" "Why would I discard it?" asked Kurenai irritatedly, a frown arriving on her lips. "Alright, I apologize for my stupid question. Now do you actually want to complete this holy ritual while being naked?" asked Naruto in surprise. Kurenai shrugged. "I feel this way we lay our bare hearts to each other. It's kind of romantic to me," suggested Kurenai, hope shining in her eyes. "I don't mind. Kurenai Yuhi, in front of the old as well as new gods, I hereby take you as my beloved wife. I shall be faithful to you, love you with all my heart and satisfy any needs of yours with all my power," pledged Naruto. He gently placed the ring in her hand. Her smile widened to the largest he had ever seen on her face, along with a few tears arriving in her eyes. "Main Kaiser, Naruto Uchiha, I too take you as my husband from this day forward. I promise to love you, support you in every way possible and remain by your side until the day I die," promised Kurenai. She eagerly placed her own chosen platinum ring on his finger, which now lay beside a diamond one which he had inherited from his previous marriage to Haku. Naruto leaned forward and laid a soft, long-lasting kiss on her lips. Kurenai felt tears falling from her eyes as the gesture entwined them to each other forever. Despite their struggles, quarrels over the years, their love for each other had never vanished or diminished. And now they were together, which was a dream come true for both of them. "I love you, Naruto," said Kurenai tearfully, wrapping her arms around him, bringing him close for a warm hug. Naruto kissed her cheek and hugged her back, resting his head on her shoulder. "I love you too, Kurenai," whispered Naruto in her ear. 3 men stood in front of each other in the command center, their eyes fixed on the map placed on the table, along with a few reports lying nearby displaying various tactical information and scenarios presented to them by the junior officers, along with the recommendations made by the Reich leadership, including the army commander. Shin and Sai studied various points in thorough detail. Both of them were actually quite surprised when Naruto appointed them as his tactical advisors, despite having more battlefield experience than both of them. The reason given by the Kaiser for such a move was simply yet effective. Naruto was a wild boar whose fierce strength always made enemy armies crumble before him. But this time his own forces were outnumbered twice by a large enemy army, and whose commander was Shikamaru Nara. A man whom even the Kaiser considered a tactical genius. To compensate for this, Shin was given the task of devising tactical formations that would sustain the Reich army during battle. It was well known to the Kaiser that in terms of tactical defense Shin always had smart ideas, while Sai was given the task of finding out points from where the Reich army could initiate a swift piercing attack, and reached straight for the enemy command, wiping them out quickly. The enemy still has a decisive advantage in this war. Even if we have the most disciplined, advanced army, we only have 45,000 soldiers left under our command, while the enemy nearly has 105,000 troops to fight. Said Shin gravely, we cannot think of penetrating deep behind their lines due to our fewer numbers. If we do so, the few thousand soldiers that we do manage to send through the enemy army will only be surrounded from all sides, waiting to be annihilated. At this point the only thing we can afford is a battle of attrition and can hold out against the enemy for 2 days. And that is if all our plans work and our officers don't fall, otherwise. Expressed Sai honestly, both of you are right. I don't plan to recklessly push my soldiers through enemy formations only to be ultimately surrounded and slaughtered. But at the same time, if I don't make a breakthrough, my soldiers will get tired from the constant fighting and will ultimately be overrun. That is why I need your help, Sai. Requested Naruto. What do you need from me, Naruto? Asked Sai calmly. Since you are an Edo Tensei, I don't have to worry about any mortal harm coming to you. More than that, the enemy has very slim chances of stopping you, suggested Naruto. I understand. But I am just one man, Naruto. Pointed Sai. What if I give you an unbeatable large force? Could you command them to destroy the enemy front lines? After that I can charge in with our army. Said Naruto seriously. That would depend upon the quality of the soldiers you give me, and how many you can spare for the task. Replied Sai frankly. Even so, Naruto. We can't afford even a small contingent of forces from any front or risk the collapse of our lines. Warned Shin. I don't plan to do that, Shin. I have a reserve force which I haven't revealed to anyone till now. Said Naruto, a cruel smirk arriving on his face. His friends stared at him in surprise. How many? Asked both rude eagerly. 25,000 soldiers, led by 400 officers that are as talented as me. Said Naruto frankly. What? The Kaiser smiled on seeing the shocked look on his best friend's face. He saw Shin quickly make the calculations and reveal that with this force their army could manage a breakthrough, since their numbers would increase to 70,000 fighters instead of 45,000 which they had right now. How in the hell did you even manage to get so many fighters? Asked Shin in a surprised voice. Don't worry about that for now. However, there is a catch with this army. Warned Naruto. I thought so. Even then, I'll take any help you can provide me with. Insisted Sai. Very well. I'll assign the birds of the Black Lancers and my entire crow fleet to you. Combine that with your ink birds should be more than enough to compose a medium-sized fleet. Fighters who can attack both from the air and land. Suggested Naruto. Sai nodded. A creepy smile arrived on his face as he narrowed his eyes dangerously. Leave it to you to have an ace up your sleeve no matter the situation. Your tactical brilliance has only progressed over the years. Thought Shin proudly, when the enemy numbers have been thinned. I'll lead the rest of the army straight through. Said Naruto seriously. You're the Kaiser. You cannot participate directly on the front. What if something happens to you? Suggested Sai worriedly. Naruto shook his head. This entire battle is a big gamble. I've committed everything I have. Either I'll win or lose. There is no other way or chance of a second battle after this. I am also the strongest fighter. You cannot ignore the strategic advantage I can provide to our forces. Suggested Naruto. Even so, it is too dangerous. Not to mention, the real enemy here is the Akatsuki. We need to stop them first. Advised Shin sagely. Itachi did give me some useful information about their whereabouts. I've already assigned a small infiltration team led by Enko to find out their exact location. But if my guess is right, then they won't be too far from the battlefield. They're probably waiting for us and the resistance to destroy each other greatly, then execute their plan flawlessly. Explained Naruto. How cruel and disgraceful. Said Shin bitterly. It is exactly what I would have done if the situations had been reversed. Commented Naruto. Kaiser, scolded Shin, but Sai raised his hand. He's right. The strategy is quite effective. Wars are often won on such brilliant tactics. That is why we need Naruto to focus his attention on Akatsuki and the masked man. Advised Sai. I will. But first I need to give a considerable advantage to my army, or at the very least provide them opportunities to score a victory. Or stall the enemy long enough for me to. Hinted Naruto. Neither of us like you taking on the Akatsuki and the masked man alone. Said Shin flatly. I'll have Itachi by my side, possibly Kurenai too if all goes according to the plan. The rest of you are needed here to supervise the army battle. Said Naruto strictly. I don't trust that man, Naruto. He may be Sasuke's brother and you may have pardoned him, but it still does not make him a reliable ally. Until recently, he was one of your most dangerous enemies. Warned Shin. That is a risk which I shall have to take. Sasuke believed in Itachi, I shall do the same. And that is the end of this topic. Ordered Naruto. His friend sighed. Still, did you learn anything about the masked man in particular? Asked Shin curiously. To their surprise, Naruto lowered his gaze and didn't reply to the question. Sai, go to this location. Your army will meet you here, prepare your strategy in the meantime. Instructed Naruto, pointing his finger on the map and diverting the topic. As you say, Naruto. Replied Sai hesitantly, still not satisfied with the dismissal of that important question raised by Shin. Shin, you shall stay by my side. Together we shall command the Reich forces across the battlefield. Ordered Naruto, getting a nod in return. Understood, Naruto. Have you two thought about my offer? Asked Naruto suddenly. Shin and Sai stared at each other for a few moments, before giving each other nods and looking at the Kaiser. If it's doable, then we'd like you to bring us back to life. Said Sai hesitantly. Naruto smirked. And what made you change your mind? Asked the Kaiser curiously, his hand resting on his chin. We have seen your powers, and a tiny hope has sparked inside of our hearts. We aren't too hopeful, but going back to the afterlife so soon doesn't seem like a good idea. Said Shin sheepishly, his cheeks burning bright red. But isn't that morally wrong? You shouldn't bring the dead back to life. Laws of nature must be respected. Blah, blah, blah. Said Naruto cunningly, waving his hand carelessly. You're toying with us. Complained Sai. Humor me. Replied Naruto with a smirk. Yes, we would like to live again, Naruto. Both of us, but only if it possible and doesn't harm anyone in any manner. Explained Shin frankly, but we still wonder how you'll do it. We also wonder how our forces can win this war, asked Sai doubtfully. Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. It is this reason alone that I am the Kaiser, and not any of the others. I can do it, all of it. The only thing I ask for is your support and faith in me. Requested Naruto. You don't have to ask that question, Naruto. We are with you all the way, even if you can't revive us. Promised Shin. I'm glad to hear that. Replied Naruto happily. Will you revive the others? Asked Sai hesitantly, choosing each word carefully. The Kaiser got a faraway look in his eyes. Long ago, I swore with the three of them to conquer the universe. That all of us would together change the corrupt world. I was ready to sacrifice myself for those three, no matter when, no matter where. But in the end they were the ones who were sacrificed. I always relied so hard on Sasuke, Gaara and Tsunade, and they even gave up their lives for me. Said Naruto regretfully. you miss them," said Shin compassionately, "every moment. I truly believe that I have a right to fulfill the desires of my heart. I'm no saint, and I have no shame in admitting that I am a selfish man. My entire life I have fought to change the world, and I want to live in this changed world with the people I care about. History can judge me any way they want, even the people, I don't care. Even so, I need to think about this matter," explained Naruto honestly. "You'd rather fulfill your wishes and regret later, than not fulfill them and regret it even more. Is that right?" asked Sai knowingly. Naruto smirked and started walking towards the exit of the room, and whispered in a proud voice, "I am the Kaiser, after all." A curt knock was heard on the door of his room. Naruto looked up from his book and gave permission. He didn't bother trying to see who it was, since in the past few years it had become a normal routine of his life to meet people every now and then. Instead, he expected the person who had come to meet him to explain their issue, and only then would the Kaiser decide whether it was truly a worthy concern or a nonsensical waste of time. "Father." He blinked. There were only 2 people in the world who could call him that, one of whom was not even old enough to walk. That only meant. Raising his head, he spotted his eldest child standing in front of him. Barely even reaching the height of the desk on which Naruto placed his book, Rei stood straight. Her eyes looked straight at him. "What did you say?" asked Naruto. The little girl hesitated for a moment. "Father, I need to talk to you," said Rei seriously, although her nervous gaze was more than enough to show she was still trying to adjust herself to calling him that name. Naruto smiled inwardly, but he didn't show it. One thing he had learned from his interaction so far was the fact that if he wanted to make progress with her, then he had to allow her to take the first steps and only then reciprocate in return. Any unwarranted advances were always met by harsh reactions. "You'll make a worthy princess or even a great empress one day," thought Naruto hopefully. "Why don't you have a seat first, daughter?" addressed Naruto kindly. She smiled. The child watched curiously as Naruto clapped his hands. A moment later a servant entered inside and quickly brought a small, comfortable chair and placed it beside the Kaiser on the man's order. Rei saw Naruto gesturing to her to take a seat, and she did as asked. "Now, what is it that you wanted to talk to me about? And before you say anything, I'd like to say that you've made me very happy by calling me father," complimented Naruto. Thanks," replied Rei shyly. "So," urged Naruto, "I heard some rumors," said Rei cautiously. Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Such as?" "They say that you're a god," said Rei curiously, and stared into his eyes. Naruto had to bite his tongue not just to burst out laughing and risk hurting his daughter's feelings, yet he understood one thing. "Now I know why you called me father. Because if I actually turn out to be a god, then I can smite you to tiny pieces. Quite interesting is the fact that you do not fear facing armed ninjas, yet fear the notion of gods. As far as I know, Root never believed in religion, but rather in Danzoism," thought Naruto curiously. "Tell me something, Rei, do you believe in gods?" asked Naruto patiently. The child nodded. "Yes, I believe. I read many stories about Hachiman," said Rei enthusiastically. "Did Danzo allow you to do that?" asked Naruto bitterly. "Yes, Danzo-sama allowed me to read a few books if I performed well in training. I worked really hard, even hurt myself, but I always enjoyed reading from the books. I don't know why, but I feel happy when I read about Hachiman," said Rei honestly. Naruto secretly balled his fists. His heart vented out the worst curses on the now-deceased Shimura Danzo for doing such a thing to a child. Yet even from this painful revelation Naruto learned an interesting thing. Rei liked reading. He fetched inside his desk drawers for a few minutes, and took out a book. Presented it to the child. "Since you like reading so much and are interested in mythology, I have this book. Take it, it's yours now," said Naruto calmly. Rei looked at the title and smiled widely. On reading, "The Old Gods and Era of Hachiman." "I don't have to give something in return?" asked Rei carefully. after all Danzo had always told her everything came at a price. Yes, you don't have to provide something to me. I'm your father, it is your right and my duty to satisfy all your needs. The only thing I ask is that you take care of this book and once you are done with it, you preserve it safely. A wise person never destroys instruments of knowledge, no matter how old they may be. Advised Naruto sagely, I will. But I don't like taking something without giving anything in return, I really want to, insisted Rei, making Naruto smile widely. Honorable, a worthy trait. I don't need anything from you, but if you truly want to give me something, then can you try to call me father more often, asked Naruto hopefully, choosing each word more carefully than ever. Rei looked thoughtful for a moment, then she gave a nod with a small smile. I can do that, said Rei honestly. Good. And now to satisfy your original question, I am not a god, but a man. However. Naruto paused. Rei's curiosity piqued as she edged closer. There is a belief that my clan descended from Hachiman. Revealed Naruto, Rei's eyes widened. That means, said Rei in shock, I don't have any concrete evidence to prove it, but judging from the powerful warriors my family has produced over the 1,000 years. It is more than likely that the rumor is actually true. Some historians call people like me as demigods, part human, part god. But in my eyes, I am just a man. Powerful, yes, but only human. Explained Naruto patiently, I think I understand, father. Still it is good to hear the truth from you, said Rei thankfully, then she bit her lip, as her eyes landed on the 2 rings in Naruto's hand. They, also, say, you, have, 2 wives, said Rei hesitantly, slight resentment seeping into her voice. Yes, I am married to another woman besides your mother, said Naruto frankly. Why? Asked Rei sharply, and then flinched on realizing the tone of her voice. Naruto sighed. It's complicated. And you shall understand the reason when you grow up a little more, but I can assure you this, that I love your mother as much as I love Haku, said Naruto fiercely. That pretty lady who gave me chocolate, asked Rei in surprise. Naruto nodded with a smile. Yes, that is her. She cares about you too, and you may not know this, but you also have a little brother, said Naruto happily. Rei's face lit up. A broad, eager smile arrived on her young face which warmed Naruto's heart. Really? Asked Rei happily. His name is Yang, you should meet him, suggested Naruto. She eagerly nodded. Haku was nice to me, but what should I call her? Asked Rei curiously. I'd suggest mother, but I leave the final decision to you. I'm sure you can make your decisions with careful consideration, suggested Naruto easily. I will call her mother, but I don't want to hurt my mother, Kurenai, said Rei worriedly. Naruto ruffled her hair. You won't. Kurenai understands your feelings, so does Haku. After me, they are the ones who care about you the most, said Naruto confidently. Rei nodded. Father, is there truly going to be war? Asked Rei worriedly. Yes, replied Naruto grimly. Can't you stop it? The soldiers say you are the most powerful man in the world. A Kaiser, said Rei curiously. Naruto placed a hand over her tiny one. I have tried to stop it. Believe me, if there was anything I could do more to stop this bloodshed, I would do so. But unfortunately, the enemy is quite determined to destroy my nation and my people. And I can't allow that to happen, said Naruto seriously. I don't like wars. They're scary, said Rei hesitantly. Naruto made a bold move and picked up the child. To his fortune, Rei didn't resist as Naruto placed her carefully on his lap. As they should be. War is something every person should try to prevent, but sometimes you have to fight in order to protect what's most important to you. For me, that is my family, friends, my son and my daughter. Even when I don't like war, I have to fight to protect those precious to me. Now tell me, Rei, what is precious to you? Asked Naruto patiently. My mother, Anko, Hinata and Ichin, they have all been so good to me. I want to protect them. Said Rei slowly. Naruto pursed his lips for a moment. Suppressing the sad feeling in his heart, he steeled his resolve and opened his mouth to speak. I want to protect you, too, said Rei hesitantly. Naruto's despair vanished instantly on hearing that. Rei leisurely rested her back towards Naruto's chest, much to the father's delight. I don't like to see you cry. It makes me sad. I want to stop that, said Rei worriedly. Naruto placed a tender kiss over her head, suppressing the lone tear that had arisen in his eye. Then pray that we win this war, daughter, whispered Naruto, his voice a little choked. Rei turned around and now looked at him. Her small hand reached up and wiped the single tear that had started to fall from his eye. I want to fight beside you. Protect you and mother. Wished Rei, you are too young for that. But if you truly want to help us, then assist the medical ninja in treating the wounded. Get them anything they need, follow their orders, save the lives of our soldiers. Suggested Naruto. Rei didn't look completely pleased, but accepted the advice regardless by giving a nod. They were interrupted when Shino knocked and stepped inside the room a moment later. Both men exchanged quick nods, before Shino stepped outside again. Naruto placed Rei back in her seat and slowly stood up. I have to attend to other affairs, Rei. You can read the book I gave you here, if you want. Suggested Naruto kindly. Hi. Good. And I promise I'll protect your mother during battle, and bring her safely back to you. This I pledge both as a Kaiser and your father. Said Naruto seriously, determination shining in his eyes. Rei smiled brightly. Naruto gently patted her head and started walking towards the exit, when the next words stopped him. I also want my father back. Said Rei gently. The Kaiser closed his eyes, reeling in his emotions, turning around and simply giving Rei a firm nod. December 30th, Imperial Year 5, 7 o'clock hours. Two great armies faced each other. On one side of the battlefield, stood a small army dressed in the uniform of the Reich. While on the opposite side, the larger resistance army stood dressed in the uniforms of different former ninja villages and held the flags of their respective nations. Shikamaru Nara stood on top of a tall constructed tower along with his advisors, his eyes fixed in the far-off distance. Kaiser Naruto Uchiha stood on top of the Yuzu wall, his army standing beneath him and outside the Reich's most powerful wall. All of them stood ready. Rei and Hinata were seated in the medical camp, their eyes fixed on the television screens which were showing them the entire battlefield. Commander Kakashi Hatake led the left wing of the Reich forces. Commander Mifune led the right wing of the Reich forces. Commander Yuhi Kurenai led the middle and the strongest part of the Reich formation. Army Commander Shino Aburame remained in command of the rear forces, his sharp eyes observing the soldiers under his command. Shin stepped beside Naruto on the large wall, his eyes seriously observing the vast resistance army. So, the decisive battle arrives. Said Shin. Naruto nodded. It seems the enemy has taken sensible formations despite their massive numbers. It can only be achieved by instant and clear communications, only possible with the help of Yamanaka. Into you seem to have progressed well over the years. A shame that you and Shikamaru are my enemies. Said Naruto calmly. The Kaiser then took a deep breath. I'd like to announce something to our soldiers. Said Naruto. Shin nodded. The Kaiser stepped forward as every Reich and resistance soldier's eyes landed on him. His dark eyes shined brightly as he spoke loudly and clearly. Before the battle, I want to say this to you once again. Regardless of what the cowardly ninja villages or former rulers of previous dynasties did in the past, so long as the Uchiha dynasty lives on, the Kaiser will always stand at the head of the Reich army in all battles. This applies to my son, too. The Kaisers of the Uchiha dynasty will never hide behind their soldiers, and go to war from afar in a safe and secure court. I pledge to all of you, a coward will never become Kaiser during the Uchiha dynasty. The masses exploded. Each and every soldier of the Reich army cheered. The entire battlefield shook with their bloodthirsty cries, and their national flag was raised again and again. Soon enough they all started reciting the same slogan. Sieg Kaiser Naruto, Sieg Prince Yang. Sieg Kaiser Naruto, Sieg Prince Yang. Sieg Kaiser Naruto, Sieg Prince Yang. Shin stared in awe as 45,000 soldiers shouted that slogan again and again. All doubts and worries gone from their hearts, only to be replaced by an unending confidence and sense of victory. All because of one man. The former Root ANBU saw the pride in the soldiers' eyes as they cheered for Naruto. How proud! Main Kaiser always shows his back to his allies, and chest to his opponents. Thought Shin proudly. Naruto raised his hand high in the air, and then he yelled. Attack! Shin steeled himself as the Reich army roared on their Kaiser's command. The signal had already been given from their side by their leader. Now it was their turn to wait for the enemy to make their move. Across the field, they saw Jiraiya saying something to his comrades, and then the resistance armies roared. Naruto's face was ice cold, his eyes firmly set on the enemy. This was his test, the toughest battle that he would lead as the Kaiser. Shin stared at his leader, knowing one thing about the man. For the Kaiser, defeat and death meant the same thing. Just like his cousin brother, the martyred Sasuke Uchiha, the Kaiser was also a proud man, and his honor would never allow him to kneel to the resistance, or live in a recreated ninja world. Instead, the man would fight bravely and honorably die in battle. Or he could do the impossible and defeat this endless army standing in front of him, and rewrite the history of mankind forever. The fate of the entire world depended upon Naruto Uchiha. And in this moment, the words of a dead man came back to haunt Shin's heart. No shinobi in this era would be able to match him. He alone is an army himself, and his will shall make the strongest nations fall beneath his feet. One day, Shin, this boy, will be the key to world domination, and through him Konoha shall rule over the world. Each and every word of this prophecy was said by Danzo Shimura to him. And now, on the eve of this terrifying war, Shin could not help but realize almost everything had happened as Danzo had said. Except for Konoha and Fire Nation 2 being destroyed and absorbed by Naruto. Then he heard Naruto drawing his attention elsewhere, disrupting Shin's inner thoughts. You see, brother, they truly believe their sheer numbers are enough to overwhelm my forces now that we are out of the protection of these walls. Said Naruto bemusedly. Shin shook his head. They have every right to think so. Future historians will call us fools for marching out our entire army outside of our safe walls and face twice the larger resistance army. It's like bringing the sheep to the wolves, when we could have easily fought against this siege safely behind our walls. We had the supplies, manpower, leaders to withstand that. Explained Shin regretfully. That would be the case if our ultimate goal was not to stop the Akatsuki and the masked man from ending the world. Said Naruto sharply. Even so, Naruto, a lot of our people will die. Said Shin sadly. Whenever history wakes up from its slumber, it demands rivers of blood. The resistance will lose even more. Our army may be smaller than theirs, but it is technologically superior. Our troops are better trained, more motivated, since they are fighting for one empire under one flag, under one leader. The resistance factions each have their own agenda. And if worse comes to pass, I myself will slaughter each and every resistance soldier if that is the price I must pay for winning this war. Said Naruto icily. Then may the gods have mercy on all of us. Prayed Shin. Naruto's gaze hardened. The gods may show mercy, I won't. Promised Naruto. Shin saw hundreds of Reich archers taking positions on top of the Yuzu walls, determined to protect their territory in case enemies pierced through their army and tried to breach the wall. The sounds of bugle ran across the entire field, and the resistance army started shifting. Naruto narrowed his eyes when the once vast enemy army divided itself into 90 phalanxes, each having 100 fighters at the front, backed by another 800 who stood in the middle and rear. A total of 81,000 strong men and women started marching forward. The Kaiser had activated his 3-tomo Sharingan, his sharp eyes analyzing the movement with complete attention. On the other hand, the Reich had divided its forces into different parts, each led by Kakashi, Kurenai, Mifune, and Shino respectively. The entire army was designed into a total of 3 parts. The shield forces, Commander Kurenai was in charge of these forces, which comprised 20,000 of the strongest soldiers in the Reich, along with the former Black Lancers of the Resistance. Their sole task was to hold against the enemy tide from the center and aid their allies. The sword forces, divided into the left and right flanks, each holding nearly 10,000 soldiers and led by Kakashi and Mifune respectively. The soldiers in these forces were specifically chosen for their speed, ferocity, and barbarism. Their task was to spear through the enemy lines. Apart from these two, they also had a reserve force stationed in the rear near the walls, led by Army Commander Shino Aburame. This force merely had 4,500 soldiers in it. The remaining 500 fighters were the archers standing on top of the Yuzu wall, along with their Kaiser. "Advance the left flank," commanded the Kaiser. Shin nodded, relaying the orders through his communication device. Seconds later, Kakashi pointed his hand forward as the entire left flank started marching towards the enormous enemy army, which was 8 times their size. "Adopt half-lunar formation," instructed Naruto. Instead of meeting head-on with the enemy army's left flank, Naruto's forces started shifting towards the center of the enemy formation. On the other side of the field, Shikamaru smiled a little and raised his own hand. The resistance army stopped marching and stuck together in an enormous wall to fight united against the smaller army. "So, he's not taking the bait. Well, time for Plan B," thought Naruto. "Call back the left flank," ordered Naruto, "but that would cause their formations to collapse," warned Shin, and saw Naruto smiling darkly. "Just do it." Shin begrudgingly obeyed, and to his surprise Kakashi obeyed without hesitation. The entire Reich left flank started running back towards the wall like cowards, completely no regard left for maintaining a formation. Their backs fully open for the enemy to claw upon. "Naruto, Shikamaru will not fall for this deception," said Shin flatly, aware of the intelligence Nara possessed. "No, he won't." "But they will," pointed the Kaiser. Shin's eyes widened when the entire enemy right flank broke their combined formation and ran after Kakashi's retreating forces. The enemy's middle and left flanks buzzed with commotion, not sure whether to follow or not. "How?" asked Shin in surprise. "The enemy's right flank is made up of Kumo's soldiers. Their Reikage and thousands of fellow countrymen died recently following Shikamaru's command. I don't think they have any respect left for Shikamaru's orders. Besides, they're an aggressive lot, and want to deal a mighty blow to me," explained Naruto cunningly. "Main Kaiser, now's the time. Order Kakashi to check positions," said Naruto seriously. The commander did as ordered and the left-right flank stopped their retreat suddenly. Turning around, they raised their shields, and clashed against the 20,000 bloodthirsty Kumo forces. The gruesome battle started, and Shino saw Naruto wince every few minutes as Kakashi's forces, being twice outnumbered, were getting hammered, and pushed back. The remaining resistance soldiers had still not arrived at a decision to come to their allies' aid. They are probably thinking it's better to let Kumo shinobi destroy themselves. One less hidden village to deal with, thought Naruto distastefully. Their massive size has become a problem for Shikamaru. Reining in thousands of soldiers takes time. Main Kaiser precisely took into account the emotions of the different resistance factions and is using it against them, deduced Shin, not saying it out loud. The former Root saw a malicious grin arrive on Naruto's face when the Kumo forces pushed Kakashi's soldiers behind a certain point on the battlefield. "Now, punch their balls through their exposed flank," "Shield forces, charge!" yelled Naruto. Across the other side, Shikamaru cursed loudly when he saw Kurenai dispatching 5,000 of her own soldiers from the center. Within seconds those men pounced on the Kumo soldiers who were now fighting a battle from two fronts. "Reich forces have attacked our flank. At this rate the Kumo army will," warned Ino. "Call them back, now," warned Shikamaru. Kakashi smirked when he saw raw fear on the now trapped Kumo soldiers' faces. He raised his hands high in the air. "Sword force, push!" Earning credit to their namesake, the sword forces launched themselves upon the stunned enemy. The Reich soldiers tore through the confused enemy's lines, while Kurenai's soldiers divided them further into two halves. Many Kumo fighters started fleeing. "You're good, Kaiser. Leaving me no choice." "Remaining flanks, advance," commanded Shikamaru. Shin grimaced when the remaining resistance army started running forward. Marching from the middle and left flank were nearly 61,000 resistance warriors who were about to clash with the tiny 25,000 Reich forces on the opposite side. "Main Kaiser," warned Shin, but Naruto's gaze was fixed somewhere else. Tracing the direction of the Kaiser's gaze, Shin saw his friend was directly staring at his army commander, Shino Aburame. "Intercept," commanded the Kaiser. Shin frowned. What could a small reserve force do against such a massive army? Then his eyes suddenly widened in shock when Naruto slammed his hand downwards. Kurenai and Mifune instantly made their forces fall flat on the ground, as the enemy forces were just about to reach them. Even Shikamaru seemed shocked by this unexpected action. "What is this?" asked the resistance commander frustratedly. This was a completely ridiculous tactic. No sane commander would ever do something like this. "Fire!" yelled the Kaiser. "Catapults, loose!" commanded Shino. While the main armies had been busy with their battle, the Reich army commander had finished readying the Reich's finest weapons. And now, as per the Kaiser's orders, the Aburame was given the final clearance. Several large flaming rocks about the size of a mini boulder were fired by Shino. With deadly accuracy they started wreaking havoc across the charging enemy forces. Hundreds of soldiers screamed for being crushed by the rocks or getting burned due to the flames. It rained everywhere. "Reform formation," ordered Shikamaru. The advance of the resistance forces slowed down as they started reorganizing themselves. But they had already arrived too close in range of the Reich army, specifically Shino's range. "Baliste, open fire," said Shino flatly. Hundreds of spears were fired from a mechanized weapon which led to several collapsed lines across the reorganizing resistance front. All the while, Kurenai and Mifune kept their forces lying flat on the ground, easily evading the firefight between the two forces. In that moment Shikamaru Nara realized that what he had previously assumed to be just a reserve Reich force actually turned out to be a mechanized infantry, armed to the teeth with deadly close as well as long-range weapons. He had let his army walk straight into a trap in hopes of pressuring the enemy, thereby letting the badly destroyed Kumo forces retreat to safety. "Damn it!" thought Shikamaru. Meanwhile, Naruto was not done yet despite slaughtering thousands of resistance soldiers in just an hour of warfare. He pointed his hand to the right and said clearly. "Shift fire," said the Kaiser. Shino did as ordered and turned his entire firepower in the said direction. The results were astonishing. The entire front of the right enemy flank collapsed within seconds. Naruto then instantly raised his hand stopping the onslaught. "Mifune, kill them all," said Naruto deviously. "Gladly, main Kaiser," said the veteran samurai. Thousands of samurai pounced on the weakened enemy forces from their collapsing flank. Meanwhile Shino had shifted fire to the struggling middle resistance force. Their advance had been completely halted. Shin couldn't believe it, even as he witnessed it with his own two eyes. The Reich was tearing apart the resistance army. Amazed, he turned towards the man who had planned this entire operation, and froze. Shin's eyes widened in horror when blood was leaking from Naruto's mouth, and his entire uniform was drenched in the red liquid, the source being a wound opening in the Kaiser's upper chest portion near the heart. Naruto's own eyes were barely open, and a second later he collapsed. Kaiser. The nearby Reich archers instantly leapt forward, preventing their Kaiser from falling straight off the Yuzu wall. Shin dashed towards his friend's side, ripped apart the Kaiser's robes. And for the first time he saw a hole in the Kaiser's chest. "Take him to the doctors," barked Shin. At that moment, a weak hand was raised. The Kaiser slowly opened his eyes and looked his comrade straight in the eye. "Belay that order," said Naruto seriously, but protested Shin furiously. Naruto glared at him. "If I go away, our forces will lose their confidence, and chaos will spread everywhere. Shikamaru will seize advantage. I can't allow that," said Naruto stubbornly, placing his hand over the bleeding wound in his chest. Naruto channeled medical chakra and slowly the blood flow stopped. The wound closed temporarily. Without a word, the Kaiser got back on his feet. Standing straight, he stepped forward again to observe the battlefield, and the only proof that he had actually fallen unconscious or had a hidden wound was only the pool of blood lying behind on the surface of the wall, which the archers were already clearing on his orders. "Naruto, you need medical attention," said Shin worriedly. "If I abandon my soldiers in this time of need against such a dangerous foe, I'll always be remembered as a coward." "I won't do that, besides it doesn't suit the Kaiser's advisor to panic so easily," advised Naruto, with a bemused smile. "Kaiser," said Shin, a lone tear arriving in his eyes. Naruto stared at his own blood-stained hands along with the thousands of dying and dead humans across the battlefield, and said in a sad voice, "Regardless of the color of eyes or skin, the color of blood is the same for everyone, isn't it?" asked Naruto, a faint sad smile visible on his face. Shin and the Reich archers observed as Naruto continued to command his forces without even a flinch, giving orders frequently. Due to his composed command and the fine performance of his soldiers, Kurenai was able to deal a massive blow to the resistance forces lying in the center. They never had a chance to survive her attack since Shino had torn their front lines with his weapons. Mifune had also managed to gain higher ground on his flank. It wasn't much, but at least the samurai leader was not on the back foot. Kakashi had made the most progress and had nearly annihilated the entirety of Kyomo forces, and was now busy dealing with the remaining few that were still left. The battle continued for hours. There were times when Shikamaru managed to create openings, but Naruto quickly stopped those attacks with his quick thinking and precise commands. Although he was in immense pain, he continued to lead his forces. At one point, when he nearly lost consciousness again and was being taken back to the hospital, the Kaiser severely rebuked Shin, although he did take several painkillers and medicine to deal with the pain. Yet, the color was gradually fading from his face. By early evening the tide had completely shifted in the Reich's favor. The resistance army had suffered catastrophic losses, and were now in the process of safely retreating from the battlefield. Naruto didn't allow his own tired forces to pursue the wounded enemy army and risk getting ambushed. Shin and the Reich archers watched in awe as Naruto finished the first day of battle and organized a disciplined retreat of his forces behind the wall. The Kaiser never left his position or relinquished command until his very last soldier was safely back inside the walls. It looked as if the Kaiser was defying death, but Shin knew such hardiness came at the sacrifice of the body. At this rate, without medical surgery and proper medication, Shin knew his friend's life was in critical mortal danger. Even so, the first day of the final battle was over, and the Reich was victorious. By the end of evening, Naruto had finished congratulating his soldiers who wholeheartedly cheered for him. All of them looked so happy, most of them were laughing, some were crying tears of joy, while others were staring at their Kaiser proudly. However, as soon as he got free, Naruto rushed towards the medical center accompanied by Shin. Before doing so, the Kaiser made the Reich archers swear to keep his condition a secret. Failure to do so would result in immediate execution. Naruto had said that to them clearly. Regretfully, the men had agreed. Don't disturb me. I'm not dying, just in the process of suffering. I'm somewhat enjoying it," said Naruto, a tired smile visible on his face. Shin balled his fists and gave a frustrated glare. "Does anyone know?" asked Shin. "Kurenai does, just don't tell her it's gotten a little bad. She'll go all mother hen and tie me down to this damn bed," said Naruto nervously. Shin sighed. "Little bad? You collapsed today, Naruto." "Nearly twice," yelled Shin furiously. Fortunately they were alone in the tent as Naruto had sent everyone away. The Kaiser smiled wearily. "Just a minor nuisance. This wound won't kill me so easily, I promise you," said Naruto honestly. "It will if you don't get a surgery. You're the Kaiser dash." "I know," snapped Naruto. Shin flinched. "Do you think I'm enjoying this? The fact is that I have to remain at the front, since we barely have few capable leaders left. If I don't command them, this army will lose even before we can reach the Akatsuki. A leader never abandons his people in the hour of need, definitely not a Kaiser," scolded Naruto. "I know. I just," said Shin sadly. "I understand, Shin. I've survived much worse than this. If a genetically engineered virus can't kill me, then this wound certainly wouldn't. Besides, I am making the QB work overtime to ease the pain," said Naruto frankly. "What did the doctors say?" asked Shin worriedly. "I should be able to withstand this wound without surgery for a week. But this will considerably reduce my lifespan," said Naruto honestly. "How much?" questioned Shin, fearing the answer. 10 years. Shin took several steps back, yet the Kaiser remained calm and even smiled. "Will an entire decade of his life go away? Don't think about it too much. I'm from the Uzumaki clan too. Mito Uzumaki nearly lived for 100 years. If you take that into consideration and separate these 10 years from them, even then I'll live for quite a long time. Not that I want such a thing, I'd hate to become an old geezer someday," joked Naruto. "Kaiser, are you really sure about this?" Naruto got a faraway look in his eyes. "Kami only knows how many lives I've taken so far. I've shed so much blood that it is time for me to pay my dues with my own blood. I'd call that fair," said Naruto contentedly. Shin looked away, his eyes unable to hide the tears that had formed up. To think his best friend was so easily willing to pay for his own actions across the world, this wasn't fair. After all the good Naruto had done for everyone. "It's all right. Besides, it might happen that none of us may even survive this war. So it won't matter, and Shin keeps this information between us only. Consider it as my reward to bring you back to life," said Naruto bemusedly. "You haven't brought me back yet," replied Shin pointedly. Naruto smiled. "Point taken. Then do this as a favor to the Kaiser at least. In future a grateful emperor can be quite beneficial for you," suggested Naruto. Shin glared at him. "You're a brother to me. I'm not doing this to gain something. But because you deserve my loyalty and are on the right side, never forget that," scolded Shin, his persona as the older brother manifesting to the surface again. Naruto lowered his head a little. "Forgive me, Shin. My words were inappropriate," apologized Naruto, making the older boy sigh. "Apology accepted. You were quite magnificent today. Danzo would have been proud," said Shin, and suddenly slapped his mouth shut on realizing just what he had said. Naruto didn't outright lash away, but the glare he gave to Shin was more than enough to convey the message. "I'm sorry, Naruto. For me, it has just been a few days since I died. But as years have passed and things have changed, it'll take time for me to get used to this. But I promise not to mention that man's name again in front of you," said Shin sincerely. "Good," replied the Kaiser. "Honestly, main Kaiser, you did the impossible today. This may be my opinion, but I believe you are the greatest military commander of this era," praised Shin. Naruto took a deep breath. All I am is a flawless instrument of death. I did what was necessary, but that doesn't mean that I enjoyed killing those soldiers. Because in the end, they were people too with different beliefs. Said Naruto frankly, I understand, Naruto. Now, let us go for the meeting. Or the others will get worried, and remember no mention of my little incident to anyone. Warned Naruto. Hi. Applause and cheers didn't seem to stop following the Kaiser wherever he went. Even now, while arriving in the conference room, he was greeted with the same cheers, praises by his highest-ranking officers. He didn't say it out loud, but from the inside he felt disgusted. What has the world come to? People cheering for a mass murderer in the guise of a military leader. How far humanity has fallen. Kami, if you truly exist, then please let it be the last time humans are so deluded enough to engage in such a farce. Prayed Naruto. Of course, he didn't express his thoughts to anyone. Not even to Kurenai, or any of the others, for he knew how important this victory was for them and the Reich. And he had no right to say such things after so many of his own soldiers and officers had also laid down their lives today. Silently bearing this guilt inside his heart was his curse. One which would increase the longer this war stretched. But for the sake of the future generations to not bear such things, he had to shoulder this burden. Whether he liked it or not. As he assumed his position at the center of the table, he raised a firm hand, bringing an end to the rain of cheers. Politely his commanders took their own seats around him, even so their wide smiles and eyes that radiated victory and pride were quite noticeable. I congratulate each and every one of you for performing excellently today. I've already congratulated the soldiers, but I'd like all of you to tell them again that their Kaiser is proud to fight beside them. And that all of you are a credit to the uniform you wear. Congratulated Naruto, a true smile visible on his face. Thank you for the praise, main Kaiser. While it is true that our soldiers fought bravely today, we played a small part in guiding them. But at the end of the day it was your tactics and precise commands that helped us gain victory. Said Kurenai proudly. True. Excuse my rudeness, main Kaiser. But I too had doubts about our chances of victory since we faced so many disadvantages from the start and had Shikamaru as our opponent. He was the brightest among us since the academy, yet you defeated him today. I am proud to serve under your command. Said Shino frankly. The others nodded in agreement. Shikamaru is a great commander at such a young age. If he had an army like mine to command, then his chances of victory would be much higher than now. If you look at it, it is Shikamaru who has more disadvantages than me. Said Naruto sincerely. I don't understand, main Kaiser. Said Mifune, a frown visible on his scarred face. It is true that the resistance has more forces than us, but they are divided from the inside. Each soldier of the resistance is from different former ninja villages and all of them have an agenda of their own. More than that, almost majority of them wouldn't mind if many ninjas of other villages die in this war. That way they can stop the formation of those villages and establish their own hegemony. Each great ninja village is after that, they all want to get the rewards by conquering the Reich only for themselves. Explained Naruto briefly. Disgraceful. Said Shin, I'd say it's human. If you can't even trust the man beside you, then you can't win a war no matter how large your army is. And while I do have a smaller army, my soldiers are united and are fighting for the same flag. They are motivated since I am leading them myself, and have such good commanders in the form of all of you. We are also better trained, better equipped with weapons and supplies, know the terrain more than our enemy. When we take into consideration all these factors, I'd say the Reich is not as helpless as it seems. Said Naruto calmly. That may be so, main Kaiser, but we also have paid a heavy price in this war. The resistance may have lost more men than us, but considering whom we lost to this war. Said Kakashi regretfully, still feeling ashamed for not being able to save those three. If anyone is to be blamed, then it is me, Kakashi. I was the one who gave the orders and they followed them, even you did. Please don't blame yourself for that, since it is my burden to bear. Replied Naruto sadly. Everyone lowered their gazes as they felt the weight the Kaiser was carrying on his young shoulders, and still how much he was saddened with the death of 3 of his family members. "I'd rather fear an army of sheep led by a lion, than an army of lions led by a sheep. Shikamaru is neither of those, but he certainly commands an army of jackals who are more interested in harming each other than the enemy. So this will be the last time I will hear any rebuke directed towards Shikamaru Nara. He was once a close friend of mine and I still hold him in high regard for his skills and nature." "Am I understood?" asked the Kaiser sternly. "Hi, main Kaiser," replied everyone quickly, quite intimidated by that fierce stare hovering down on them. "Now, give me a full report," ordered Naruto. Shin got up. "Main Kaiser, as per our latest information, our forces managed to eliminate nearly 45,000 enemy soldiers today. Another 4,000 of them were wounded and are currently our prisoners of war." Pin-drop silence prevailed in the room as everyone had their mouths open in shock. Only Naruto lowered his gaze, already fearing such a thing would have happened considering how fierce the Reich attacks had been. "I slaughtered an entire force even larger than my own army today," thought Naruto regretfully. "We must execute the prisoners as soon as possible," instructed Shino coldly, his eyes betraying not a single emotion. Slam! Everyone flinched when the Kaiser violently slammed his hand on the table. "You will do no such thing, Aburame Shino. I don't care what the cost is, but I will not allow my soldiers to slaughter people who have already lost and are unable to defend themselves. If I find out that even a single prisoner of war was executed, I will personally execute every person who did that, no matter who they are." "This is the order of your Kaiser," roared Naruto. Shino flinched, which was the best expression anyone could see to show he was intimidated. "And who wouldn't be when a Mangekyo-wielding Kaiser?" Naruto was glaring at you. "Understood, main Kaiser," said Shino quickly. Naruto took a deep breath, deactivated his dojutsu and sat back down in his seat. The others sighed in relief as the tension in the room vanished. "How many did we lose?" asked Sai hesitantly. Everyone grimaced. "Around 7,000 Reich soldiers died honorably in battle today. Another 3,000 were injured and won't be able to participate at least for a few days," said Shin solemnly. "Bury our dead with full military honors, give the wounded the best possible treatment, and reduce the suffering of those we can't save. It doesn't matter if they are Reich or resistance. Also send an emissary to Shikamaru. Tell him we will allow him to collect the bodies of his dead if he wants, or else we will be forced to burn them in order to stop disease from spreading in our camp," ordered Naruto. "It shall be done, main Kaiser," said Shin. "Still, we need to know who among our forces suffered more losses and make necessary corrections," advised Kurenai. Naruto nodded in return. "My forces suffered the least casualties, main Kaiser. I think I can manage with the forces I have tomorrow," said Kakashi honestly. "The shield forces also have enough fighters to battle tomorrow." "We are fine, main Kaiser," said Kurenai frankly. "So is the reserve force, main Kaiser," replied Shino. Everyone turned towards Mifune, who got a grim expression on his face. He looked towards the Kaiser, who nodded patiently. "My forces encountered the Iwai and Kiri forces today. They are quite dangerous and I lost too many good young men today. I request some assistance, main Kaiser," said Mifune honestly. "Commander Mifune, at this point I don't have any more forces to spare for you. So sadly you will have to make do with the fighters you have left," said Naruto calmly. "I understand," said Mifune politely, yet he looked dejected and even worried. "But..." The old man was surprised when Naruto looked him straight in the eye. "If a situation arises when you need help, then I myself will come to your aid. This I promise," said Naruto confidently. Mifune's eyes widened. So did everyone else's, since the Kaiser was their most powerful warrior and himself was an army. Quite literally. Naruto smiled and Mifune gave him a deep thankful bow. The old samurai definitely looked relieved, even more confident now. While the others discussed various plans for tomorrow's battle, Kurenai carefully observed as Shin and Sai discussed something with the Kaiser. Judging from the subtle conspiracy looks on the faces of the boys was enough to prove. They definitely know something, which the rest of us don't. What are you up to, Naruto? Thought Kurenai frustratedly. She had to admit a part of her did feel sad and betrayed that Naruto was not discussing his plans with her, even when she was his wife and a high-ranking commander. But another part of her trusted him too, believing that everything he did was for the benefit of the Reich and she had to continue trusting him. Kurenai was quite surprised when Naruto's eyes widened for a moment. Everyone, tomorrow we shall spear through the resistance armies. Said Naruto directly, it will be difficult, main Kaiser. Said Shino frankly, I know. We don't need to send our entire army, just a small force. Possibly a special ops squad to this location, pointed Naruto. Shin showed the location to the other commanders on the map he held in his hands. What is there, main Kaiser? Asked Kakashi dreadfully, the place where Akatsuki is preparing to start the apocalypse from. And they must be stopped at all costs. Said Naruto fiercely. They all gasped, but soon enough gave the Kaiser determined nods. The resistance will be more cautious and dangerous tomorrow, don't slack for a second or that will be the end of you. You must create an opening for me to reach the Akatsuki and stop them. Itachi Uchiha will be assisting me in this, and I don't want any more discussion on this topic. Said Naruto clearly, main Kaiser. Said Kurenai, but he raised his hand. We just don't have enough forces to assist me in my own mission. Even now the resistance still has nearly 55,000 troops to fight. We only have 35,000 left. That is why I request all of you to remain on the field and continue to command our forces. I'll stop the Akatsuki, can I count on you? Asked the Kaiser. Yes, main Kaiser, replied all of them. Even so nobody seemed too happy with the decision. Seems like Anko succeeded in her mission of finding the Akatsuki hideout. She really came through today. Said Kakashi fondly. Naruto smiled on seeing the affection Kakashi still had for his former lover. A sentiment which Naruto very well understood. Yes, she did. Anko was currently hiding deep inside a mass of trees and bushes, almost invisible to the human eye. Around her a squad of Reich soldiers also observed the location in front of them. Niji was the one closest to her position, his sharp Byakugan observing the two people who were conversing right now. Who is that? Whispered Niji. Anko narrowed her eyes and a moment later she bit back a snarl. That's Kabuto with the masked man. I can't believe the little shit is still alive. Cursed Anko, quite. Hissed Niji. Anko grunted. She honed back her senses and focused on the ongoing conversation among the Reich's most dangerous enemies. Orochimaru-sama is dead. Said Kabuto, his voice silent and a little sad. Unfortunate, but it only allows you to carry his will forward. Suggested the masked man. Kabuto nodded. I suppose so. I have honored our contract, and my minions will protect this base if it comes under attack. Now about. Said Kabuto, but stopped when the masked man raised his hand. An Uchiha always honors his promises. Here are the ancient scrolls I promised. It has all the vital, lost knowledge you need about the Senju, Hagoromo, Uzumaki and many other prominent clans. Declared the masked man. Kabuto gleamed, his face lit up as if he had found the ultimate treasure. The resistance is not faring well. At this rate they will lose even with your Zetsu clones supporting them. Advised Kabuto, it doesn't matter. By the time they realize what is truly a threat, it will be too late. Nobody can stop the revolution of Akatsuki. Said the masked man seriously, his Mangekyo gleaming in the darkness of the cave. Still, the Kaiser is quite powerful. Commented Kabuto. The masked man laughed, and was that pride she heard in his tone? Anko couldn't quite understand this strange feeling arising in her chest. He's an Uchiha and a descendant of Izuna and Madara. A pity that they didn't have someone like him during the Clan Wars era, or else the destiny of Uchiha might be different today. said the masked man proudly. Who are you? Asked Kabuto, a frown arriving on his face. The same question lingered in Anko's heart. Slowly, the masked man slightly lowered his mask. Anko and Kabuto both gasped. Impossible, thought Anko, her hands trembling and heart beating faster than ever. She had to report this to the Kaiser immediately. Turning around, she prepared to make a mad dash back to her camp only to come face to face with a dark pair of Mangekyo eyes. And this person was not the masked man. I really don't like people who stand behind others. Slam. Naruto enjoyed the cool breeze that hit his face as he sat on top of the Yuzu wall. The morning sun was about to rise in the sky, and the light had slowly started to seep through the clouds. It was quite peaceful. He fought back a flinch when the pain in his chest pinched a little. A response not missed by the person sitting beside him. You're wounded, said Itachi calmly. Naruto shrugged. Not quite. I'll be fine, replied Naruto coolly. Sasuke really liked sunrises when he was kid, said Itachi sadly, as he saw the first glimpse of the sun. Yeah, replied Naruto silently. You do know what awaits us, right? Asked Itachi seriously. Yes. I won't give you any rosy pictures, Naruto. This might just be a one-way trip for the both of us, not that I care whether I live or die. It's all the same to me, said Itachi honestly, still glancing at the sky. You want to go after him, don't you? Protect him from whatever mess he creates in heaven? Asked Naruto with a smile. Itachi lowered his gaze. I should not have survived. It was not supposed to go this way. He was supposed to be by your side in this final battle, not me, said Itachi bitterly. Sometimes things just don't go our way. Can I count on you, Itachi? Answer me honestly, said Naruto seriously. Itachi sighed. In my mind, you are still guilty for destroying Konoha, and it is still my duty to bring justice to all the people of the village whom you harmed, possibly help recreate it if the resistance wins, said Itachi frankly. Naruto smirked while shaking his head. You are possibly the most loyal shinobi I have ever met. If Konoha had truly valued you, then it wouldn't be in ruins right now, commented Naruto. Itachi nodded solemnly. But in my heart I promised Sasuke to start a new life and look after his family. My brother died for me, and I intend to honor the promise I made to him above the oath I made to the village. I don't like it, I don't agree with what I am doing, but I will do it regardless. For Sasuke, for Sakura and their unborn child. That is all there is left for me to do now, explained Itachi sadly. Naruto stared at the older Uchiha, who had lived a life the same as him yet remained loyal to a nation which had destroyed his entire life. You're a strange man, Itachi Uchiha, said Naruto calmly. Itachi smirked. Likewise, Kaiser. I still find it hard to believe that you forgave me and even allowed me citizenship in your empire, said Itachi curiously. Naruto raised his finger. The only reason I did that was because Sasuke asked me to. I will never forgive you for the treachery you did against me, but I loved Sasuke. Probably not as much as you, but enough to allow someone like you to be given this pardon. That's all, replied Naruto flatly. Fair enough. It seems the two of us are different, yet quite similar in the end, said Itachi with a faint smile. Agreed. What can you tell me further about Tobi? Asked Naruto seriously. Not much that you already don't know. He's strong. The only reason I even agreed to support the resistance was because of Hiruzen-sama's wish and because Tobi promised not to harm Sasuke, said Itachi frankly. I don't have any other choice but to take your word for it. Will he really start the Moon Eye plan? Asked Naruto curiously. Itachi frowned. It is hard to say. Tobi is a mysterious person, and he has taken a lot of interest in you. The few times that I did meet him over the years he spoke of you often. I may be wrong, but I think he was proud of you, suggested Itachi. That's absurd, said Naruto in denial. Maybe, I'm just telling what I felt. This may just be my feeling, but I don't think Toby wants to harm you or your family. Sure, the two of you have different end goals, but has he ever tried to harm you or your loved ones? Asked Itachi, and received a sharp glare in return. He killed Gaara and Tsunade, he aided the resistance with his army of Zetsu clones. I'd say that's enough proof to deny your baseless theory. Replied Naruto bitterly, anger seeping in his voice. That is your opinion. But Toby provided Zetsu clones because otherwise the resistance didn't have a snowball's chance to stall you or even defeat you. He attacked with the Geto Mazo only after the Reich scored a decisive victory and the resistance was on the verge of collapsing. He only intervened when it was extremely necessary, and even then it was never his intention to kill your loved ones. Gaara and Tsunade gave their lives voluntarily for their people. Explained Itachi patiently, despite Naruto's glare hardening with every passing second. Are you defending that man? Asked Naruto incredulously. I only offer a counter-theory of your own. Believe it or not, it is up to you, Kaiser. Said Itachi coolly. Naruto growled. It doesn't matter. He is my enemy, and when I see him again, he dies. Itachi quietly observed from the sidelines as Naruto went through a series of photographs presented to him by a grim-looking Shin. Judging from the looks on the Kaiser's face, he seemed quite worried. Something I can help with? Asked Itachi hesitantly, not sure if his advice had any value. To his surprise, Naruto didn't look up and instead motioned him to come forward. Wordlessly, the Kaiser gave him the pictures he was previously browsing through. Apparently, they were recon photographs taken from the sky. Since when did the Reich have a fleet? But that was a lesser concern in comparison to the thing which Itachi was seeing through his own eyes. Even he had to admit, it was a work of true art and cunning. Shikamaru Nara seems to have improved his tactics by drastic levels. Commented Itachi, this means the resistance won't launch a frontal attack like yesterday. They know we are better in that area, and so Shikamaru has decided to do what he's best at. Said Naruto grimly. What is that? Asked Shin curiously, confusing and frustrating the enemy through mind games. And when they are completely exhausted, wipe them out in a swift strike. I remember he defeated me with such moves several times when we were kids. Said Naruto calmly. What are you going to do? Asked Itachi, and saw Naruto clench his fists. I need to reach the Akatsuki by today. If Shikamaru's plans works, then we would be stalled in an endless conflict for days, possibly get annihilated too. He has left me no choice. Said Naruto bitterly. Itachi frowned when Shin got a horrified look on his face on hearing those words, but didn't say anything. There was definitely something which the Kaiser and his loyal friend were hiding from everyone. Something monstrous. Forgive me, thought Naruto regretfully, glancing at the sky. Then he steeled himself and turned towards Shin, who got a solemn look in his eye. Launch Operation Overlord. Shikamaru held his breath as the news of the Reich army beginning their march reached him. Yesterday had been the worst day of his life, right from suffering his largest defeat to suppressing various mutinies across his army. Last night alone, he had to execute 500 of his own soldiers in cold blood in order to stop them from seizing control and initiate their reckless plans when their enemy was so devious. These fools still believed they could overpower Naruto with sheer numbers. Hadn't they learned anything about the Kaiser from the previous battle? You seem to have gotten a lot better at shogi, Naruto. Or did you always hide your true talent during our games? Wondered Shikamaru. Shikamaru, are you sure about this? This would make you the prime target of the enemy. Said Ino worriedly. It can't be helped. If we lose today, then our defeat is imminent in this war. Naruto knows if I fall, then the resistance will soon follow. More than that, he is a man who hates bloodshed, so he'll try to kill me and end this war. I plan to use that objective against him. Said Shikamaru seriously. Do you really think Naruto will fall into your trap? Asked Ino doubtfully. The probability is quite high. He only has an army, so he will have to attack me from land. And then he shall fall in that trap. advised Shikamaru. The next second alarm bells rang across the entire camp. Ino shot him a glare, but joined him as both of them ran outside the tent to find out the reason for this emergency. Their eyes widened when they saw hundreds of birds hovering over their entire camp. Most of the army was made up of crows of all sizes, the rest were ink birds and other flying creatures. On top of the largest bird stood Sai, who coldly stared at the resistance army lying beneath him. He raised his hand high in the air, and shouted, "Fire!" Shikamaru quickly grabbed Ino and ran for cover as thousands of explosives tags rained from the sky. Hundreds of his soldiers exploded, several were sent sailing away, many more burned, others were hit by sharp shards of metal all over their bodies. The resistance commander's eyes widened in horror when he saw something that terrified his soul. Across the field he saw Konohamaru organizing several confused ninjas and started leading them towards the tree tops, in hopes of destroying the enemy's fleet that had so dangerously attacked their command center. "Launch them," said Sai darkly, no emotion present in Root ANBU's eyes. Shikamaru quickly performed a set of hand seals as a barrage of shells rained from the sky. He managed to erect a barrier around him, Ino and a few others when all hell broke loose. The chemical weapon called Hellfire, which the resistance had procured through Orochimaru, and the one which was used by Shino Aburame during the Astarte encounter, was unleashed from the sky. The entire forest erupted with flames, as if hell had been reincarnated in a second. Shikamaru shivered in horror as he watched thousands of his men and women burn alive. Their screams, their peeling flesh, their agony was unbearable even to watch. Ino fainted on seeing the horror. By the time the attack was over, the entire command center of the resistance along with thousands of their soldiers were burned to ashes. Even the once grassy ground had turned pitch black, mixed in with the ashes of the dead humans. The formation which Shikamaru had formed to fight against the Reich had broken in several directions. His troops were in complete disarray, and Ino was completely out of commission. What a disaster! To think you would go this far, Naruto. Thought Shikamaru bitterly. He sighed in relief when he saw a gigantic barrier on the other side of the field where Jiraiya was protecting what was left of the resistance army. By Kami's grace, the Sannin had managed to save thousands of soldiers from getting burned alive. Shikamaru was about to run towards them when he saw something falling from the sky. Bam! When the smoke cleared and Shikamaru managed to get a first glimpse, he took several steps back. For there in front of him stood a monstrosity which could only be seen in a person's worst nightmares. In the center of a field stood a human. What was terrifying about him was the fact that his entire body was composed of bare bones, and neither did he have skin or muscles. He was a simple skeleton who was wearing an unfamiliar military uniform. The monstrosity confusedly glanced around, its hollow eyes searching for something. And a few seconds later, he found his target. "Gah!" yelled the skeleton soldier. In a mad dash it ran towards a resistance kunoichi who was trying to get back on her feet. The frightened woman screamed in terror when the creature leapt on her. His bare hands cannibalistically tore through her heart and started stabbing her again and again. All the while it cheered in a demonic voice. Shikamaru. The terrified Nara looked down to see a completely burned Konohamaru crawling towards him. The boy had lost both his legs, and his left hand. His body was badly burned, and he was bleeding profusely. "Konohamaru, I," said Shikamaru helplessly. Nara froze when an ancient sword pierced through Konohamaru's skull, ending his life. Looking up he saw thousands of those skeleton soldiers falling from the sky, and in that moment the resistance commander said only one word. "Run!" Across the field, far away from the resistance army, Kurenai watched in horror as those demons butchered every single human that caught their eye. She had never seen anything like this in her life. No matter how badly those skeletons were wounded, they continued to attack until either their foe was dead or they themselves. She grimaced when she saw Sai leading this charge. Absolute ruthlessness was shown by the boy as he slaughtered every resistance soldier along with his demonic army. In front of her she saw Naruto's fists were clenched so badly that blood had started to leak from the skin. And a horrible conclusion came to her mind. "You did this, Naruto?" asked Kurenai in shock. Now she understood just what he was discussing with Shin and Sai in yesterday's strategic meeting. And now seeing the massacre happening in front of her made her blood chill. This was not war, but a genocide. And the Kaiser was the one who authorized it. For his part, Shin stood beside Naruto, his ice-cold eyes dating anybody, even her, to make a move against the Kaiser. The boy was already holding a sharp sword in his hand, ready to be used against anyone at a moment's notice. "Yes, I did," confessed Naruto, still looking ahead watching the genocide with his own eyes. "Naruto, this is inhuman," said Kakashi nervously, and flinched on seeing the Kaiser's cold eyes devoid of any emotion. "Have you forgotten who I am? And what I was?" asked Naruto icily. Kurenai grimaced. Memories of Naruto butchering the entire Root ANBU Black Ops with Sai's help came to her mind. The Kaiser had participated in mass genocides his entire life. Starting with Root, to the hidden villages, to the great nations, and now with the resistance. His ultimate plan was to destroy the shinobi world completely. And now he was carrying it out. "I will do what is necessary to save thousands of my soldiers from needlessly dying today. I had hoped that after yesterday's defeat, Shikamaru would agree to surrender. But regretfully he hasn't, and even went forward to make a cunning plan that would have made us suffer terrible losses, and stall us for days. I need all of you and my army to stand against the Akatsuki," explained Naruto calmly. "What are those devils, main Kaiser?" asked Mifune hesitantly, pointing towards the army of skeletons. "They are a tiny fragment of all the people Ryujin Jaka has killed during its entire existence. Most of them were wicked souls who had sinned terribly in their lives, and by dying through Ryujin Jaka's blade they became its eternal slaves. I brought them back temporarily to fight for me," said Naruto frankly. "An army of the dead," said Kakashi worriedly. "Unbeatable. Main Kaiser, if you had such a power, then why didn't you use it yesterday? Thousands of our soldiers need not have died. Even this entire war with the resistance would not have been necessary. Neither Sasuke, Gaara or Tsunade had to die," pointed Shino disappointedly. "There is a catch to this army, Shino Aburame. One which is too heavy for my soul to bear, and I wanted to refrain from using it if possible," said Naruto sadly. "What is it?" asked Kurenai quickly, dread coursing through her heart. "They will kill all of my enemies. It wouldn't matter if they were men or women, adult or child, wounded or healthy. Those warriors have no sympathy left in them, only a desire to kill, and torment exists in their souls. Just like Ryujin Jaka torments them for eternity, they do the same to their enemies. And since I am this sword's chosen wielder, my enemies are their enemies. Every last one of them shall die today," said Naruto gravely. "A sound decision, main Kaiser. You saved thousands of our soldiers from dying today, and increased our chances for the final battle against the Akatsuki," said Shino in a satisfied voice. "How could you be so inhuman?" asked Kurenai and Kakashi in unison, quite mortified on watching the barbaric massacre of thousands of humans in front of their eyes. Many of them are former comrades. Naruto turned around, grabbed both of them by their throats and lifted them high in the air. His eyes burned with anger, hatred, sadness, and cold determination. "I would end this fucking war," yelled Naruto furiously. The Kaiser thrashed the two of them to the ground and pointed his sword to them. His eyes are deadly serious. "You don't have to like it, you don't have to agree with it, but I will do what is necessary to save the lives of my soldiers and stop the Akatsuki from destroying the world. Either you two fall in line or join your former comrades in their end," threatened Naruto icily. The few Reich soldiers and commanders who had doubts backed away when Shin and Shino stepped beside Naruto. And when the cold eyes of the trio landed on the Reich army, each and every one of the soldiers fell in line. Kurenai and Kakashi looked away, but refrained from protesting further. Kurenai trembled when she saw Jiraiya charge toward Sai, who was leading the immortal army. Naruto unleashed his divine sword instantly. "Kill him," commanded the Kaiser. Suddenly thousands of skeleton warriors stopped their massacre, and a moment later they had their eyes turned on Jiraiya. Gah! Kakashi gasped when thousands of undead warriors charged towards Jiraiya on Naruto's orders. It was hard for him to believe that Naruto would take such drastic measures, but when he looked a little deeper, a scary conclusion came to him. Naruto belonged to a family of mass murderers. The boy's own father had decimated thousands of IWA warriors like this in the previous ninja war, and Kakashi didn't need to imagine just what kind of man Madara was to whom this boy was related to. "Sai, your job's done. Get out of there," said Naruto quickly, because even while the skeletons fought madly, Jiraiya was holding his ground bravely. A testament to the power of the man, whom even Naruto considered as the strongest among the legendary Sannin and a person who trained the Yellow Flash. But eventually he would be overwhelmed, and that would be the end of him. Even when Jiraiya destroyed the undead fighters, a few seconds later they rose back up and fought back again and again. Hell-bent on killing the Toad Sage. "Why didn't they attack Sai?" asked a curious Reich soldier. "Because he's already dead and they can't attack such a person. More than that, Sai is my best friend and ally, and those demons are my pawns. They obey my commands," said Naruto flatly. Shin stealthily came forward and took the Kaiser away from the eyes of his comrades. When they reached near the shade of a tree, Naruto coughed a handful of blood from his mouth. The wound on his chest opened again as Shin started healing it. "I told you that jutsu was forbidden. From where do you think the undead army got the spiritual strength to rise from their graves?" "From you, Naruto," said Shin sternly, and watched as Naruto coughed again. "It was necessary. This is my punishment for ordering this genocide," said Naruto painfully. "You should have told the price you paid for this victory to Kurenai, Kakashi and the others. At least this way they would have understood that their Kaiser sacrificed so many years of his own life to save their lives. You must remember, Naruto. The longer you use Ryujin Jakka, the more it consumes your life. It was this reason why I couldn't master its true power, while your Uzumaki, Senju and Uchiha lineage allowed you to master it. But there is always a price to pay for having this kind of power," warned Shin. "I can't let them lose focus. This war is bigger than your or my fate. It's about saving the world," said Naruto tiredly, wiping the blood from his lips. "Don't use that sword again, Naruto. I beg you," pleaded Shin. "I make no promises, brother. I have tried for years to not use it, but there are times when I have no choice. Today was one such unfortunate day," said Naruto sadly. "Will the future generations and even our own people understand why you did what you had to?" asked Shin silently. "I don't think many will. Every leader has a black mark in his rule. Hiruzen's was Operation Ghost. Mine will be Operation Overlord," said Naruto honestly. "Then let's make this worth the lives that were sacrificed today," suggested Shin, getting a nod from Naruto. "Agreed." Naruto ran forward across the dense forests, his vast army along with its commanders following behind him. As a precautionary measure, he had left 5,000 of his soldiers behind to encircle and eliminate any surviving resistance forces trying to escape. It was a merciless order, but he had given it regardless. His immortal army had orders to return to dust as soon as they eliminated the resistance along with its leaders. And now nearly 30,000 Reich soldiers and their top commanders along with the Kaiser charged towards the final enemy. The one who was a threat to entire humanity and not just the Reich. Shin and Sai remained at Naruto's sides. Shino was not too far away. These three were the only ones who agreed with his decision on Operation Overlord. Mifune remained neutral, while Kurenai and Kakashi didn't look the least bit happy. And neither did he care about their feelings in this matter. if using weapons of mass destruction was necessary to save his people and the world, then as the Kaiser he had to do it. And there was no going around it, or denying the fact that from a moral point of view it seemed inhuman. But in a corrupt world such as this, there was no place for morals to exist. He quickly raised his hands when he sensed something. The others stopped on his command. Not a moment later, they spotted thousands of cursed seal-bearing warriors arriving on the open grassy fields. Behind them stood a grinning Kabuto, making Naruto growl. Just when he placed his hand on his sword to slaughter these people, Shino stepped forward. "Main Kaiser, let us deal with them," requested Shino. "He's right. We shall create an opening for you and a small part of our army to go forward," suggested Mifune. "I'll stay too," said Kakashi seriously. "I need to know where Anko is, she has been out of contact for far too long." "So I'm coming with you," said Kurenai flatly. While the Reich leadership was discussing their moves, Itachi's sharp eyes picked up the sight of something that made his blood run cold. His eyes widened as he took a step back. That did manage to attract Naruto's attention. Just what could it be that shocked Itachi Uchiha of all people? Turning around, the Kaiser stared in shock too, for there came an army of zombie warriors marching towards the battlefield. Hundreds of them. And all of them were dressed in the battlefield armor of the Senju and Uchiha clans. "Father, mother," said Itachi in shock, his hands trembling as he watched his parents step forward, observing their surroundings curiously. "I can't believe it. He revived those two clans? Together they can be as powerful as my own army, not to mention the army of cursed seal warriors," thought Naruto worriedly. If that was not enough, he saw how shaken Itachi looked on seeing his own revived parents standing on the opposite side. The man's life was one unending tragic story. "Main Kaiser, I'll take command of our fleet. Attack them from the air. Not that I have too many bombs left after our attack on the resistance," said Sai seriously. "I have to stay. I need to free those people from Kabuto," said Itachi hesitantly, his eyes quite sad. Naruto clenched his fists. Things were not going according to his plan. In order to face such a powerful army that included the strongest clans of their world, he would have to. "Fine. Mifune, Kakashi, Shino. Take command over 25,000 Reich soldiers and defeat this army," ordered Naruto. "Hi, Main Kaiser," replied the three men in unison. "Sai, take command of the air fleet. Your only objective would be focusing your attack on the Edo Tensei Uchiha and Senju clans," ordered Naruto. "It shall be done, Kaiser," replied Sai confidently. "Itachi, I am assigning you 3,000 of my best soldiers. They shall hold our former clansmen at bay, while you head straight for Kabuto. Make him stop the Edo Tensei at all costs. If Kabuto falls, his army will soon follow." "Understood?" asked Naruto seriously. "Yes," replied Itachi stoically. Naruto placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stay strong, and try to wind up things here as soon as possible. I'll need your help," said Naruto honestly. "I'll do my best," promised Itachi. "Yash. Kurenai and Shin shall accompany me along with the remaining 2,000 soldiers. Together we'll try to stop the Akatsuki, or at least hold them off long enough for all of you to arrive and help us in ending this damn war," said Naruto flatly. "Hi." With quick salutes and last-minute goodbyes, the once large Reich forces divided themselves into the decided two parts, one extremely large and other quite small. Kabuto moved his forces to stop the Kaiser from going forward, but was stopped when Itachi destroyed the ones who tried to get in the way. The Reich army then clashed with their opponents. The mind-controlled Uchiha and Senju clans also joined the fray, making it a free-for-all kind of battle. Kakashi, Mifune and Shino took charge of the ground forces. Sai attacked from the air. "Is that you, Itachi?" asked a sweet, surprised voice. And not a few minutes later, Itachi heard a voice which he thought he would never hear again in his mortal life. Turning around, he turned to face the two of them. "Hello, father, mother." Naruto and his small force walked straight through the Akatsuki hideout. It was not at all a peaceful stride, since hordes of Zetsu clones attacked them every now and then in an effort to stall them. But it was futile, since the 2,000-strong Reich soldiers, led by Kurenai and Shin, were more than enough to deal with the white-colored zombies. The Kaiser walked proudly towards the giant Gedomazo, inside of which were stored all of the tailed beasts except for the Kyubi. Then he heard footsteps approaching from the shadows. "So, this is the almighty Kaiser," said an unfamiliar voice. Naruto kept his surprise in check when he saw a pair of Mangekyo eyes look at him from the shadows. Kurenai stepped beside him in a protective move. "Is he the masked man?" asked Kurenai worriedly. "No, he is not. Tobi has different patterned Mangekyo than this man," said Naruto flatly. "Another Uchiha? But wasn't the entire clan wiped out?" "We just encountered all of them as Edo Tensei," asked Shin confusedly. All of them heard a deep, bitter growl from the man in the shadows. "They deserve it. Even so, the foolish Uchiha and Senju both shall have a place in my new world," boasted the unknown Uchiha arrogantly. Naruto smiled. "Tobi, you don't need to hide. You know I can sense you wherever you go," said Naruto tiredly. Laughter echoed through the entire cave as the masked leader of the Akatsuki stepped forward. With only this time he was not wearing any mask. Kurenai saw Naruto take a few steps back, pure shock and disbelief visible on the Kaiser's face. "You," said Naruto in shock. "We finally meet face to face, my great-grandson," said Izuna Uchiha, reborn again in flesh and blood. A proud, happy smile visible on his face as he stared at his own descendant. "Huh. So he's one of yours. No wonder he's strong, Izuna," said the unknown Uchiha with a small chuckle. "Why, thank you, Ni-san," said Izuna deviously, a cunning smirk arriving on his face as he watched the priceless expression on Naruto's face. Kurenai gasped when several bodies were thrown towards her and Shin from the shadows. It didn't take them more than a second to identify them as the infiltration team they had sent to scout the Akatsuki. The unknown Uchiha stepped forward, tossing Niji's cold corpse towards Naruto, while kicking Anko's badly wounded form towards a group of Reich soldiers. "For someone who's your descendant, he sure keeps pathetic and weak subordinates. Boy, next time send someone who's worthy of my time," scolded the older Uchiha. Naruto's eyes changed to his own Manjikyu. The air turned icy cold as the Kaiser's chakra exploded and he said in an icy voice, "Madara Uchiha." And that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time. Later.